call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any changes tonight.
So I would request a motion to adopt the agenda as posted.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Scholze. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Russ, would you remind us of the mission statement?
Yes, our mission statement is to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Thank you. At this time, I would call on Mr. Scholze to make a commendation, please.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Hendricks. Heidi, you've been here for the last 3 years. You've kind of seen through thick and thin the district and from a board level, administrative, all staff for Sparta Area School District. We can't thank you enough for that. And so we'd like to offer you the certificate of commendation for your service on the Sparta Board of Education from April 2020 to April 2023.
Thank you.
Well, Liz, we got to get a picture. All right, come on, Heidi. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, any public input?
I do not believe we have any public input tonight.
All right, then we'll move on to reports. Ms. Wilcox is here to give us the communications report. Thanks for being here.
Can't tell you how intimidating this is to be on this side, so.
So far, so good.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to provide some information about our communications department. So my job is to celebrate SASD and connect our stories to the community to build awareness and show our pride. We work to communicate what makes us Spartan proud, and tonight is just providing a brief overview of some of our communication strategies we have used this year. So we've not done a paper newsletter like this in many years. I approached Mr. Russ to see what he, oh my gosh, I'm shaking. To see what he thought about it. The goal was really to appear in people's mailboxes without asking for anything and just sharing what's going on behind our doors. This newsletter went out to approximately 8,000 mailboxes with each production. So the total cost that is on there is the $1.28 per mailbox for the school year. It went out in the fall, winter, and spring. It's currently up for debate as to whether or not we do that again next year. If we, Mr. Russ and I have to talk to see if there's any value in it. So we have a very active social media platform. 93.3% of internet users are on social media, and social media has become a part of people's routine. And 7 out of 10 Facebook users visit the site at least once per day. So not all school districts take advantage of this opportunity, but we do. Of our 131,000 page visits, 40,000 of these were in the months of January and February, telling me that most likely when we're closed or we're delayed, that's where people are going to find their information. Some of our most popular posts. This is one that I created. It is a random person every Friday, and it celebrates all staff. The positive comments that are on some of these Fridays is overwhelming. It's a great thing to see. And it's usually a very positive thing. The cool thing about that is that I just picked Miss Cook, but I could have picked anyone from 50 different people, and you'll see all of those comments, and those are all from her. So another popular one is the Throwback Thursdays. It's a great way to connect with alumni and sharing old pictures and taking a walk down memory lane. Through Facebook, we have the opportunity to do paid advertisement. Our paid advertisement is going to show up on Facebook, Instagram, and on your messenger. The reason that the profiles reached for that is smaller is because advertisement is a targeted, we can set the radius within a certain demographic that we want to target. So Spartan Roundup would be an example of this. We set a budget for $200 and the campaign ran for 34 days and it had 383 link clicks. The link is going to take them directly to the page that gives them on our website the information about Spartan Roundup and how to sign up. Open enrollment campaign would be another example of this. So we set a $200 budget and it's still currently running. So what it does is it's going to use the appropriate amount of funding per day to get us to the April 28th date without going over that $200 limit. And you can see it's reached 15,000 profiles and had 309 link clicks, and that's going to take them right to our enrollment page. Our YouTube Insights, this is specifically talking about our Board of Education YouTube page. This is an overview of all of our live streams. So, and it's from when we started in September, recording the board meetings and getting closed captioning and then reposting them. So this page right here is only on our live stream. Before today, we had 15 of them. You can see the average time that people view the live stream is about 20 minutes. And altogether, it was 552 views. So when I speak about views, that could mean if somebody checks out the live stream and then they leave it and then they come back to it, now that counts as 2 views. So I couldn't think of a better way to show this than with just simple screenshots, but that top graph is, I update a spreadsheet with every meeting and you can see, so the peak view, what that means is the highest amount of viewers that we had at any time during that meeting. And then below that is a screenshot of what I can see on each meeting, and that's where I get the number from. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there were only 20 views on that meeting. What that means is that at the given point where there was the highest amount of viewers, that's where that number is coming from. This is the, so when after your meeting is done, it is no longer live and it cannot be viewed. So then I go in there and I download it and then I upload it into a captioning company, and they are the ones that provide the English and Spanish closed captioning. Altogether, we have 33 videos. 2 of them are going to be from that candidate forum, and then the other one is going to be from last year's candidate forum. So it's still pulling analytics from those 3 as well. Altogether, there's been 703 views, and I couldn't find a better way to do a cost per view because the 8,776 is what we have spent on closed captioning. That does come out to about $275 per English and per Spanish video that is reposted, if that makes sense. So I also track the English and the Spanish. So it's pretty straightforward. So our English has an average hours for your average English closed captioning video. It has approximately 2.7 hours that are watched, or 5.8 minutes. And then you can see on the right-hand side is the Spanish versions, the Spanish closed captioning, sorry. So going into our Spartan.org insights. So this is from February of last year till February of right now. I do have reason to believe that approximately 70 to 80% of those 900 and some thousand visits is likely from our employees, because that is the page that our employees go to access all of our stuff as well. So, but I just found it interesting that our directory, when I'm talking about that, it's our staff directory where people can go to see job titles, emails, and pictures. And I have no explanation why Herman has so many visits. The reason I can say that most of our visits are going to probably be from employees is because this will show you that somebody would enter in, Spartan.org, and that's where the direct amount would come from. I also find it interesting that at least 12% is directly from Google. So meaning you're going to Google and entering in Sparta Area School District. So I also oversee our internal communication, most of our internal communication. So this was something that I also asked for permission to do. Previously, the weekly notes for the staff was just a Google Doc, and it had some links in it. And there's no way to really track how we were doing with it. And so we've really ramped them up. The neat thing about this is that all the links that an employee could need are right there, and they get them every week. And then you can see that we have an 85 to 90% open rate, which, while we would hope it would be 100, 85 to 90 is still pretty good. So then finally, I just pulled a couple of different print marketing that we have done. And this is by no means everything, but the bottom left is a brochure that we did just for Sparta. On the right side is our newspaper, the full page that we do every summer. And then the bottom left is the left two are different posters that you might see. The bottom right is with Mr. Oswald's blessing, I updated our school calendar and made that a little bit more friendly. And then above that is our promotion for Spartan Roundup.
Well, you did very well. You hardly look nervous at all. Questions?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Going to the Facebook with 132,000 visits, do you know how many unique, I don't know if that's the right word for it.
Can I go back on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would.
So are you referring to the 172,000 or?
Yes.
The 172,000. So how we reach that is because, so say somebody is following the Sparta Area School District and they comment on something, and they have a whole group of friends who maybe that group of friends doesn't follow Sparta, but it's going to show up on their feed that their friend commented on it. So now they're also going to see that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So 488 new followers. How many followers?
I think, you would have to ask that, right? It's around 6,000.
Oh, okay. Well, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So
For our population, that's very good. Mr. Schulze, you had it?
Oh, that's 6.7 thousand. I'm sorry, 6,700 followers approximately. So 6,700.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hendricks. So first and foremost, Liz, I just want to tell you how phenomenal you did tonight and how phenomenal you do in outreach to our community. A year ago, when we all set out on this, like literally a year ago, and we talked about what we need to do to bridge that gap with the community, you were one of the primary focuses that we needed to be able to do from a district standpoint, and you're nailing it. So keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a great job. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
As far as a quick question, and I love the Throwback Thursday. That I really enjoy that. As far as the English and Spanish translation, so we've been doing live stream. And again, I don't know if this would be you or Mr. Rust maybe, but how far are we into that 6-month review?
So we started in September.
Okay.
Yep. So we're right at that.
Okay. So yeah, we're looking around $8,776 to do the translations.
Closed captioning.
Closed
So,
captioning.
so yep, it's just if you're watching the video and you click on the little CC at the bottom, it's either going to show up in English or Spanish.
All right, and then could you go to that slide real quick? I just want a little more clarification on the, I'll let you get there first. I'm sorry. Keep going. Yep, keep going. Right there.
Okay.
Could you just explain the 2.7 average hours watched compared to the 0.33?
Yep. So that means, say we had, if that was 3 hours watched, you could have 3 different people who watched it for an hour. So
Okay.
it's a total. That doesn't mean that, it's a total of, it's an average total of how many hours were viewed per video.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for the
Exactly.
clarification. I appreciate that. And keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, Liz.
There's a screen up there?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a TV here.
Other questions?
Sure, I have a few
Please go
things I'd
ahead.
like to say. So first of all, I know what it feels like on that side. You did amazing. Now fit all that into 2 minutes. But okay, so I have a question for you about the mailer that goes out.
The what?
The mailer that goes out in the mailbox.
The
that-
newsletter? Oh,
The
sure,
newsletter.
sure, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So do we ever work with the high school marketing department or the art department to create those mailers? Because I think that would be an awesome way to show off and showcase our kids'
Definitely.
talent
So
and exposure.
one of my long-term goals is to kind of get a student helper, somebody that's interested in that, and then they can use that as on their resume or for their first job and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that I'm trying to figure out how to do, but that's a great idea.
Thank you. And
They're
I-
not currently.
Okay, yeah, I think it
involved.
would be amazing if we could do that.
Yeah.
Also, I agree with Mr. Schulze that you're doing an amazing job getting these things posted and getting them out there. And I would just encourage more of that, especially on the Facebook page where it's free.
Yeah.
Just make posts. The board meeting is up.
Yes.
It's available now. It's available here and in
Yeah.
English and Spanish, there's repetitive so that people,
So-
it catches their eye.
Yeah, so I will say that there are certain etiquette when it comes to posting because there's peak times. So if you're noticing things, I'm not posting that at 7 o'clock at night. That's all scheduled in advance. And so there's recommended peak times for posting. Also doing more than 3 posts a day will mess with your analytics because people start to they just keep scrolling. And when you get someone to slow down and look at your post, then their analytics say, oh, you liked that. I'm going to show you more of that. So
I see. So
So-
more isn't necessarily better.
correct. And sometimes, not so much right now because we just got back from the break, but there are some times where I have 3 things scheduled for days out and like trying to balance and figure out what, but like I said, it's a great tool to use and right, wrong, or otherwise, that is the world that we live in. And so we'd be fools to not take advantage of it.
Yes, I agree. Thanks for all the positive things
Yeah.
you do.
Couple things. First, thank you. We talked a year ago. smiles and fun and friendly, and it's been awesome. Seeing Sam in the classroom, it brings people to life. They're not just piles of bricks we drive past every day. There are things that happen inside the schools that are good. Could you go to the mailer that Amy was talking about as well? So total cost was 10 grand for the 3 together, correct? So you're $3,300 a piece,
No,
$3,300 per mailer, or is it 10 grand per mailer?
my total cost for the school year was 10,000.
Okay, all right. So it's about $3,300, $3,400 per time you sent it.
No, my total cost was 10,000 for all 3 productions.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I guess a couple of questions. And this kind of goes back to marketing. Number one, I questioned when we got the mailer in December. Everybody's mailbox is full of things in December. We're all busy, we're Christmas shopping or whatever. I don't know if somebody who isn't engaged in the school district would have taken the time to read it cover to cover, because that issue was long. There may be a better time to send that one.
Yeah.
The second thing, if we're going to continue this, and I really would like to, I think there's value in it. I'd love to see something in it that I'd call fridge worthy. Give me a reason to hang it on my refrigerator and keep it till the next one comes.
Yeah.
Whether it's a sports schedule or schedule of board meetings everybody comes to, something that makes me look at it 90 times before the next one comes
Yeah.
in.
So Mr. Russ and I actually talked about that with our last one. And I'll be completely honest, I've never done anything like that before. I was self-taught. And so when I approached him, we kind of just picked out 3 different times. Going forward, if we do it, it might be dependent on what's happening that school year. That's great feedback about avoiding December. And then with our last one, I think we did have quite a few things in there that we why do I need to keep this? And so that was great advice to use going forward each time.
Thank you.
So, excuse me. Yeah, I'm just gonna piggyback off of Pat's thing, and I think a good piece of advice was one of my he was our introduction to sales educators back at Western. One of his big things, especially when it came to mailers, which was get their attention between the 15 seconds to the garbage can.
Yeah.
So maybe just that really big bold thing that says, I need to read this.
Right.
But otherwise, my main question is, like, what's our goals? Like 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, like what is our inevitable, what do we want our community to see what Sparta Area School District is doing, and how we could do that to push the district forward?
Yeah, one of my personal ones is we get a ton of engagement with any posts that have to do with our staff. And while staff do not like having their picture taken or videos of them, that's one of my personal goals. And so maybe you have seen, but there are more pictures now of our staff actually interacting with our students. And that is huge because not only do parents like to see that, but the parents of the instructor, the classmates of the instructor, so so that is one of my goals for something like that. Long-term goal, there's always things to continue to work on. Something I've thought about would be a monthly digital newsletter that would go out to, but well, those numbers that were, the high numbers of the amount of people that are on social media and all of that stuff, there are still people here that are not a part of that. And so figuring out how we can connect with those people who are not seeing that stuff, that's where the newsletter came out. I guess I'm open to suggestions,
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation and your great work. Next report, financial report. Mr. Russ is going to take the point on this.
All right, the financial report. I talked with Ms. Hauser and Ms. Zanin earlier today and before this, and our expenditures and revenues are looking right on track. There's really not that much more to report, but open to any questions or anything like that. But our year-to-date financials are looking very strong. And if there's any questions, I can try my best to answer those.
Any questions for Mr. Russ?
And if there is, just send me an email. We can talk about them as well. So,
All right, it appears you're off the hook on that.
no, maybe we'll keep that going.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on to business items.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
The first, discussion of possible recommendation to approve policy 8450.01. Mr. Russ?
All right. This is the PPE during pandemic or epidemic events. This was originally at the workshop model. We brought it to the board. The board brought it back to the workshop. And we do have a couple of we do have some change from the workshop number 1 to workshop number 2. So if you want to click on that link, Mr. Stearman. So the biggest change in that in my opinion was from the workshop is that originally we had the word religious exemption in the qualifying events for an exemption. After going through the workshop a second time, it was decided to bring to the committee of the whole the recommendation that there is no set exemptions until when the board enacts this policy, because this is not a policy that will stand alone until the board acts upon it. So if the board decides that, yes, PPE is required, and PPE is various things, could be from gloves to masks to gowns, aprons, whatever that might be, that at the time the board discusses whether or not they should enact this policy, that is the time that they would give the list of exemptions that would not qualify for PPE. That is the biggest one, in my opinion, and other people at the workshop may want to state that, but it really gave the board at the time the control rather than a list of absolutes that may not even be required at the time.
First, let's go to a motion and then we'll have discussion. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Hendricks, I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the full board policy 8450.01 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Scholze. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Discussion. Mr. Scholze.
Yeah, Mr. Hendricks. The other big point that we wanted to make on this during the workshop wasn't just the exemptions, it's also the fact that we're removing face coverings, we're removing masks, we're removing all of the PPE and just placing PPE in the policy, because again, up until the point of a new pandemic or epidemic event, that's when we feel the board should make those decisions on what type of PPE would be necessary or required, whether it's gloves, whether it's face masks, so on and so forth. So that was one of the other big changes, was the removal of face masks, which felt more like you're looking in the rearview mirror as compared to just saying PPE and then allowing the board at that time to make those decisions.
Other discussion.
I think I'd like to just double down on what Tony said. When we originally got this policy from Neola, it was very much, as I read it, it was very much a COVID policy. I kind of wanted to make it maybe my personal, I don't want a COVID policy. We need to write a policy for whatever the next evolution is, if one comes, God forbid. The biggest thing we could give to whoever is sitting on these seats, in these chairs, whenever we came to this, is our knowledge going through a pandemic. But we don't have the foresight to know what that would be. So we just want to leave things open, but give guidance.
Thank you. Others? If not, we have a.
I
Oh,
do
I'm
have some
sorry.
things to say. I need to say yes. Mr. McKenna, can you explain to me where in this policy, with the changes that have been presented, we are providing guidance. And not to
Knowing-
put you on the spot, but I'm not seeing that personally.
Knowing that going into COVID, there was nothing on the books whatsoever. There was no policy of 904 was written on the spot. This is a policy that will be on the books and will basically tell someone when you enact this, these are the steps you're going to have to do when you do it. That's all that I mean by giving them guidance. This I feel is much more thorough than 904 ever was. Although it can't be more specific without knowing what we're actually talking about at the time.
Thank you. So, I noticed that another change is that whatever this PPE might be, we've now obligated the board to provide it for all staff, students, where that was a change as well from our February workshop. At this time, I am not able to sign off on this policy as it's written. For those of you who are in the original workshop in February, I advocated for exemptions for health reasons, religious exemptions, and personal conviction, the same ones as the state of Wisconsin allows for immunization exemptions. We discussed it at length and came down to agreeing on that religious exemption, which, although was not ideal, well, and health, I believe, was not ideal, it did provide an opportunity for anyone who had a sincerely held belief, religious belief, and that can include somebody with no religious belief. An atheist can also have a religious exemption. It gives them an opportunity to express what is important to them and their faith. Conversely, if we were to have someone who needed a religious exemption for what we're allowed to wear to school policy, we would absolutely acknowledge that without question. I think we need to do the same thing in this policy. We have the advantage now of proximity to a pandemic. We know what this policy did to our community, whether it's face masks or gloves. It tore us apart, and it affected the learning in the classroom. It affected our students' mental health. It affected the way the community perceived the district. I don't think we should do this without, at the very minimum, providing guidance, stating something to the effect of including in policy a recommendation for providing exemptions for the future Board of Education to consider. Health, religious, and personal exemption as 3 possibilities. To put this off to another board at another time in another fearful situation without the proximity that we have and history being short-sighted, I just think that that would be an injustice to that board and our students.
Thank you.
Others? I think I got something. I think the very limited view, maybe even libertarian view, is that the board in the future could really just knock this down at any point, right? If there's a pandemic, they could just say, nope, screw it, and it's gone, you know? And so in reality, if they wanted to add whatever they wanted to add, it would be based on the values of the community at the time. Their as their duly elected status on the board. So, we knock on wood, right? They say that epidemics of COVID like proportions happen every 100 years. 1918 was the last one, was the Spanish flu, and I don't remember the 1800s, but then there was the Black Death in 16 whatever, and it's just a historical pattern that keeps on happening now. Can we say in 100 years that they'll be able to stop it before it starts? Maybe. We could keep going down this path and we can nitpick this as much as we want, but I don't think we're going to make it perfect for the given board at their given time, so.
Others? If not, we have a, I'm sorry.
I'll just add one other piece. I think a lot of appreciated the conversation at the workshop too. That was really helpful to just talk through what that February workshop looked like, and then the last time we visited this in March. But I think for me, another layer about this that really kind of sits with me is just the risk involved with hundreds of other Neola clients not adding religion in and not choosing to as an exemption before it's required, before it's federal or state requirement. I think that piece doesn't sit well with me of what would we open up our district to in the future if we choose to add that in against Neola advice, against trends from other districts across the country they're using. And then also, what does that open up? Can't tell the future. It might be a pandemic that affects a completely, different person, different, right, parts of the body, things like that. So that's where I think, leaving it up to the professionals at the time to do the best for our students.
Thank you.
I would just like to say one more thing, and that is that whenever I look at a policy, I always think of it not in terms of what Neola wants, but what does our local education agency want? What does our community want? Because these policies are supposed to represent the LEA, the local education agency, and that is the Sparta School District and the Sparta community.
Can I ask Ms. Lopez, how would you like that? What you're suggesting, how do you like it to be worded?
For that, I think I would like it to go back to the workshop.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
I think the big part for me was trying to keep it as open-ended as possible for when that pandemic or that epidemic event occurs, but to be able to allow guidance to the district at the time. So if we fall into this, that second paragraph, during times of elevated communicable disease, community spread, a declared or public health emergency, the district administrator may do this, right? We're still providing guidance. My feeling was, again, I don't want to look in the rearview mirror at what we went through. I want the board at the time to be able to say, these are the exemptions we should be doing. This is the PPE that should be required based on what the community and the CDC or whichever guidance we're looking towards at that point. So it was more trying to stay forward focused and not look in the rearview mirror. So that's the guidance that I was hoping we'd be able to help the future board if and when this ever occurs.
So I guess, human beings are pretty amazing, but we haven't changed so much in the last 100 years. When the previous epidemic, the recommendation was to wear a face covering. In this pandemic, we had the recommendation to wear a face covering. And Mr. Schulze, you know as well as I do about the effectiveness of face coverings and how they can be effective within certain parameters. And the way that our community and our students and most people outside of a clinical setting wore them perhaps was less than effective. Are we just doing this to make ourselves feel good? I don't know. Okay, so to answer Mr. McKenna's question, I would just like a recommendation for these exemptions to be considered at the time. At the very minimum, a recommendation.
And which exemptions are you saying you'd like recommended?
For the board to consider health, religious, and personal conviction.
Okay, my suggestion then to move this forward is we can do one of two things. We could have a motion to amend what appears there to include those things. We could have a motion to table and so that it would return to committee, or we could go straight to a vote and then we'll see what happens with the vote.
So I would like to make a motion to amend the previous motion to include verbiage to state that at the time this policy was written, the Board of Education would recommend the future board to consider health, religious, and personal conviction exemptions, among others.
Mr. Hendricks, so just for clarification, so I made the motion. We're not saying that those are the exemptions. We're saying if there were to be a pandemic or a future epidemic event, these are the potential exemptions that could be looked at.
Well, what I'm hearing is that we would recommend that the future board to consider health, religious, personal convictions, as well as others exemptions. Is that fair?
I feel that that was about the same. Did you say something materially different than Mr. Schulte?
Well, what I heard is that that the amendment would recommend the future board to consider.
Yes, at the very minimum. I would, of course, like more, but that is my motion, yes. To recommend to the future board to consider those exemptions.
Do I have a
So-
second?
Well, I've already made a motion and we have,
We have a motion, correct, but she's moving to amend the
Okay.
motion. But in order for the amendment to move forward, we would need a second.
Before we do that, Sam, were there any other exemptions that were given during this beyond those three?
To my knowledge, no, and very few exemptions were granted. Accommodations were granted rather than exceptions. An accommodation would be to keep a student 6 feet, the student would agree to stay 6 feet away in COVID, 6 feet away from any other person.
so again, my feeling on this is I don't like the idea of the board recommending any exception right now because we don't know what we're going to be dealing with. I would be open to an amendment to state potential exemptions could include this. But I don't feel that we as a board at this point in time should make those recommendations for exemptions without knowing what's going on.
Okay, before we to get bogged down here, we don't have a second yet for this amendment.
I'd make a second.
Okay, we have a second. So where we could go with this now is you could amend the amendment with a motion if you want to go down that road. Otherwise, we will vote on the amendment as presented.
So I would make the slight amendment to the proposed amendment that we would state potential exemptions could be, not that we are making the recommendation as of right now.
Exemptions or accommodations?
I'm talking exemptions
Do we have,
and accommodations. Would that make it clearer?
Do we have accommodations already written in this policy?
Yes.
Yep, so.
And here's why. All of a sudden,
well, before we go there, I want a second to that amendment. Because if there's no second, it's not worth debating.
all right, and here's why I feel comfortable with that amendment. All of a sudden, we've thrown personal, what was the personal conviction, right? All of a sudden, that's back in. Now, when we were in our original workshop, the negotiation in the workshop was that personal exemption went out, religious exemption came in. And so I feel comfortable saying these are the potential exemptions and accommodations that would be available or for you to think about is what I was going to say. So that's my amendment to the amended motion.
Now, before I ask for a second, because we still don't have.
Well,
a second.
you seconded.
No.
No, I didn't. I shouldn't.
You shouldn't. That's true.
Do we have, if people are clear on his suggestion, do we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
So we're going to take a vote on amending
You see, everybody on the audience wants to be up here right now.
This doesn't mean that the amendment passes. It just means what's on the floor at this time. Okay. Mr. Schulze, just so we're perfectly clear on what we're voting on, would you restate?
Yes, sir. I would make the recommendation to approve to the full board policy 8450.01 with the adjusted verbiage to speak to potential exceptions and accommodations to be discussed by Mr. Russ. What do you think?
So you're not listing the exemptions, you're just saying this potential.
Well,
Well,
we did
I-
though.
Well, I wrote, I had two things. Ms. Lopez first, I wrote down at this time of this policy, the board would recommend that they would consider health, religious, and personal convictions. Mr. Schulze, I heard, would say potential exemptions and accommodations could include.
That's it.
And then there's the list of religious.
Religious, health, religious, and are you still with personal conviction?
Mr. Russ, when I mentioned it, I think I said among others.
Among others.
Well, again, that's why I wasn't for listing anything, because there may be something we're not thinking of right now that the board at the time would want. What?
So
These,
just for clarification, for instance, as an example, in 10 years from now, we have an epidemic and this policy is in the works as it is sitting now. Would a person with looking for an exemption or accommodation, would they have to go to a building principal or to the Board of Education to have that accommodation granted?
as it is right now, I don't believe there are any accommodations or exemptions included. Certainly not any exemptions.
So
And it
then,
would, and that's the whole.
It was, I believe it was talked about at the workshop that at the time, the board would set those expectations. Would it go to the building administrator and that would end? Would it go to the district administrator and it would end? Or would it go to the district administrator to the board to end? So at the time of the board enacts this, they would be able to make that decision. There was no X, Y, and Z, but it was all at the time of the pandemic or epidemic.
So I want to make sure again that we know what we're voting on. Mr. Schulze, are you including personal exemptions?
I would be, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would be open to,
We need to be clear on what you're proposing rather than what you're open to.
right.
At what point can we table this and bring it back to committee so we can work on the wording potentially?
I think a motion to table is always appropriate. Well, or available.
I don't think there's going to be a pandemic in the next month.
right,
I do think we need to discuss this a little bit further. I'd like to make a motion to table 8450.01.
Do we have a second? The motion to table is not debatable.
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this with the understanding that it would go to the next policy committee meeting.
We're gonna have to set one up.
We have no policy meeting scheduled, but doesn't mean that we can't schedule one.
All
Well,
those in
we're-
favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, oh, roll call, please.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Schulze,
No.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
No.
Ms. Lopez,
yes,
Mr. Wells. Mr. Hendricks,
No. Motion to table passes 4-3. And we're moving on. Business item B, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the policies, 41 of them, as listed in the agenda under consent.
And I do have one adjustment. Mr. Hendricks, you were correct with the article. There is an Article 157 listed. If the board does move forward with that, Article 157 was merged into to policy 6235. So if there is a motion, I would recommend not including Article 157. Looking at my notes from the policy meeting.
So by passing 6235, it deletes the need for Article 157. Is that what you're saying?
That is my understanding of that. And if I am incorrect on that understanding, I'll bring it back to the end of the month.
All right.
But on
so-
my notes, I have 157 crossed off on the PowerPoint.
So then.
Okay,
actually,
I'm-
we will be having a motion to approve and recommend to the full board the 40 policies that are listed under consent. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
That was Mr. Wells? Yes. Do I have a second?
I can second. On consent.
Thank you, Mr. Burns Gilbert. Any discussion?
Mr. Russ. Are we sure that it's Article 157 that goes away? I thought it was Article 156 would go away that we voted on in January and that would be absorbed by 2320 purchasing. Article 157 is fund balance, and I think we did want to change that from 15% to 18%.
That's in 6235.
That is in 6235 as well. So does that change it if 156 policy one or Article 156 would still go away though? With the approval of these, does that matter at all?
156 is financial procedures, not fund balance.
Right,
So 156 will be merged into
6320.
60. We were discussing that earlier. Yeah.
And Article 157 definitely is incorporated in 6325.
6235, I believe. Yep. And if I'm incorrect, I'll bring it back to the
Okay.
full board.
Thank you for your attention to that.
No, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not.
I do have some questions.
Yes.
Okay. So under 6320 purchasing, which will replace Article 156 that we voted on in January. I am wondering, let me just get this up online. If under general provisions, this is 6320 purchasing. It's the the second page, general provisions. It states the district administrator is authorized to purchase all items within budget allocations. And then we have not selected, the board should be advised for prior approval of all purchases of equipment, materials, and services when the purchase was not contemplated during the budgeting process or exceeds the line item by a certain percentage or varies materially from the function or scope as budgeted. Because I was not in that March workshop, I'm wondering why that is not selected, at least. I guess I'm recommending that maybe it should be with the for prior approval stricken. It seems to me that the board should be advised of purchases that were not contemplated during the budgeting process or exceeds these variables. So thoughts.
I don't recall that being brought up. Doesn't mean that it's a bad idea.
I think the big consideration with that was it's for items that are within the budget allocation. So if it's within Mr. Russ's budget, we don't need to approve that because it's already within his budget. But if it's outside of that purview, now that's a different story. So I think that was what the discussion topic was as long as it's within that budget allocation, it was going to be considered okay.
Even if it's not contemplated during the budgeting process.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And wellness 8510.
We're going to be getting to that in a little.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
then
is that
The
a sep-
next one.
I'm sorry, that's separate. One more moment. Just a second. I think all my other questions were answered prior to the meeting, so thank you.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, this is under consent to the full board. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, discussion on possible recommendation to approve policy 8510 under consent.
I can't read that. Okay. All right, wellness. We did pull this after going through the workshop. We found it was a little bit longer and we missed some important topics. I did go through them and selected some additional ones specifically towards the bottom half. Nothing that would be out of the ordinary of our old policies or practices at all. But it does complete the policy as in full. It talks about food and beverages during the school day, outside of the school day, fundraising, offered, not sold. So just a lot of things in nutrition education, which is a big part of it. Part of the things in our audit, they really stress that education side, which we do the best we can in the confines that we have. And I know Ms. Lopez had a question, but I'm not sure if you want a motion first or.
Well, let's go to the question. Why not?
Okay, certainly. I believe it's on page 6 under school meal Yes, school meal program participation. There is an option.
Should be on the top of page 6.
Section, okay, oh, you're almost, I think you went past it. Right there, right there. Up there, stop, please. D, it says. Okay, so. Okay, I moved my screen, so I was confused. School meal program participation. The district shall notify parents of the availability of the breakfast, lunch, and summer food programs and shall be encouraged to determine eligibility for free or reduced meals. That's great, that's selected. I'm wondering if we should not select D, shall explore the use of non-traditional breakfast service models such as breakfast in the classroom to increase breakfast participation, especially in our schools where I believe we do have some that are universal free breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we currently do that as well right now.
Okay,
So for the universal ones, we do eat those because that's part of the requirement. The question would be if you do not qualify for the universal, do we want to promote that? And now it might say, well, Mr. Russ, you don't eat, so why aren't you eating or anything like that? So I think when appropriate, we do, and make sure we're in compliance and everything like that. But shall explore versus may explore. I think this gives us a little bit more options, and we're always looking to see how can we increase that participation the best we can without calling out Miss Mansky, why aren't you eating today? You need to eat, and that sort of thing.
no, I appreciate that perspective. Thank you. I no longer would recommend that.
Well,
So I would make a motion. Oh,
I was just gonna add, while we're on that one, I'd maybe like to see that check box number B there, or letter B, allowing students opportunity to provide input. on menu items? Is there a reason why that one wasn't checked?
We do that currently. We ask for feedback and that sort of thing, Ms. Tessing does, but that's just what we do as best practice. We put suggestion boxes out there and that sort of thing. And I know at the high school, they have a great dialogue about how to improve the quality in that. So we do that already. Shall means that we probably need to put a procedure in place to get regular feedback. What does that feedback look like at a pre-K level all the way up to a senior level? So I believe we do a very good job of seeking input because they'll let us know. They'll let us know in their own words.
Thanks.
We have a motion by Ms. Lopez.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the wellness policy?
Just to clarify, that'll be placed under consent, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, discussion and possible recommendation to approve policy 6605 under consent. Mr. Russ.
Right. This is crowdfunding. And the workshop model, we talked about the pros and cons of crowdfunding and how it can be used. Out of the workshop, it asked to get a little bit more information about local districts and that sort of thing. I did talk to local districts, one to the east, one to the west, that have the crowdfunding policy, and they're under option 2. You could please click on that, Mr. Stearman, that'd be great, where the superintendent is in charge of overseeing the crowdfunding. And one superintendent said they've never had any request under this policy at all. And the other superintendent said they had 1 or 2 over the past several years. And they said, so not a lot of extra feedback. The benefit of having it under the superintendent is that we can control it. Rather than sending out, if you guys are all teachers, you can say, hey, we need this, this, and this. There would be no policy against that. Except you just can't use, there's a policy against crowdfunding. You'd have to be very specific about what you're asking for and that. But I'd rather, in my opinion, have the district control. So if you guys are all first grade teachers at Herman, hey, what are we looking to do, to really fit the need? Because if you take things in through crowdfunding, it's the district property. There's some confusion about, I put up not to say it's a bad idea, I put up an account on Twitter and accepted donations for this furniture. And now who owns the furniture? And we need to make sure the furniture is appropriate. We need to make sure the supplies are appropriate. So, having our say in it and really working through the process together, I feel is much more beneficial rather than having all 7 of you do your own thing, and it might be competing against each other. So my recommendation coming to you tonight would be option 2.
Questions for Mr. Russ? If not, I'm open for a motion.
Mr. Hendricks, I'd make a motion to recommend to the full board approval of policy 6605 and be placed under consent.
Thank you, Mr. Schulze. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E, discussion and possible recommendation to approve employee health insurance for the 2023-24 school year. Mr. Russ.
All right, just a quick update. As I stated earlier, at the end of March, our goal was to have some information to you so that the board could act on some decisions that the committee, the Employee Benefit and Wellness Committee, recommended to us. However, we're still gaining more information. And for the benefit, we have a committee that is very valuable, that encompasses all of our employee groups. We would like to make sure that that committee has a strong recommendation or a strong understanding about what are the options that we can do moving forward. So what we're planning on is to have a board workshop in collaboration with the Employee Benefit and Wellness Committee, which is open to the public. We're looking at April 18th, to really work together in an open format where no decisions will be made. No decisions will be made, but a recommendation from the Employee Benefit Committee will move forward to the full board for their approval on the 24th. Is what we're thinking. So it really acknowledges the hard work of the committee because there's several options out there. Changing our plan, changing our providers, changing whatever it might be. But we truly believe that they've been invested in that. We've worked through this process collaboratively for the last many years. We'd like to keep that going to the extent possible. So the best thing that we could come up with in the confines of our time, because this all has to be wrapped up by May 1 with the open enrollment program or window, is to have a collaboration between the Employee Benefits Committee and the board workshop and the public to really have a dialogue about what the best moving forward is about design changes in our plan. But really to do that collaboratively rather than, well, this is going to be Sam's recommendation that affects all. So we did get some news from our company that that is very promising. And we're very excited to move forward. We're still asking for some additional information about that, what that would look like with continued design changes, deductibles, co-pays, in-network, out-of-network. I'm learning a lot about insurance. And the workshop will gain a better understanding for everybody to understand the ins and outs of the insurance world as well. So that's the update that we have. But please mark your calendars for April 18th for the workshop that we're planning. And that'll be posted and that'll be at Meadowview.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Closing items, announcements and information.
All right. Classes resume tomorrow. We're on spring break. I know a lot of people were excited about that. Our student athletes stayed on campus for the most part. We had softball, baseball, and soccer going on, and they're all participating tonight as well. So they stayed local on campus. But classes will resume on the 11th and will conclude less than 2 months away. Yes, everyone's very excited, I'm sure. And then the 18th is our workshop, which we're finalizing, but that's on the table. And Soup with the Soup, April 19th, that'll be going out in a press release this week. And to our families, to our staff, and the publishers, inviting them all to Soup with the Soup on the 19th to continue our facility discussion, listening and learning to the ideas, and maybe I'll give a summary of our community engagement event in March and give them an update where we're at in the facility process, which I'll get to right now. So Bray had the architects walking around, the engineers and everything, taking a look at everything. We are soon to be rolling out staff input. And of course, staff will be welcome to Soup with the Soup as well to give their input, listen to the ideas of the community and that sort of thing. We're looking at giving a survey very shortly, but we're looking at the timing and that sort of thing. So they went through all of our facilities, got some ideas, the electrical engineers, the structural engineers. It's just a lot of big, huge team that walk through and say, yeah, this is possible. This isn't possible, to start with that idea process. We have our full board on the 24th, 6 o'clock right here, and with the committee of the whole on the 8th and the full board on the 22nd as well. SHS news and happenings, like I said, spring break, we're coming back. Our activities are coming in full bore now. The weather is beautiful this week, so if you could take a look at our schedules, get out there. It's just fantastic weather, and next week will be more normal. But that's okay. We'll take them when they can. So, but kids will be excited to be back. We'll welcome them back with open arms. Our staff are back ready to go. And now we're on the long haul, getting ready for that final push. And our graduations are right around the corner. So lots of positives and looking forward to seeing all the smiles and hugs and high fives and fist bumps starting tomorrow again.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. I'm open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We're adjourned.
All right, we will recess until 7:20 and then we'll begin the special meeting.
You might as well.
All right, we'll call the special meeting to order. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there are not.
Thank you. I'd request a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Prestwood Funkhauser. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Russ, do we have any public input?
No, we do not.
All right, thank you very much. All right, with that, item 2A, budget overview, Mr. Russ.
All right. Just want to give an overview of where we're at budgetarily, some budget variables, some assumptions we're doing. This is very similar to that Ms. Hauser sent out in the weekly notes. But hopefully to lay the foundation for our next agenda items in the business section. So just some budget variables. So when we're talking about some things coming up here and we're all on the same page the best we can. The revenue limit per pupil, we're looking at an increase of $100 per pupil. That is what we're assuming budgetarily. The revenue ceiling would go up 100 as well. We're currently at the low revenue ceiling, so that $100 increase would not give us an additional funding. Per pupil categorical aid, the state is, we're assuming $1 per pupil, so it would be a $3,000. And the special education reimbursement would be, we're looking at a projection of 5% more than what we're currently getting, and that's approximately a $300,000 budget variable as well. We talked about now we have some budget estimates. The per pupil, we talked about the $100. Right now, we're currently at 10,000, looking at the $100 increase to the 10,100. From the high perspective, we gave you in one of the discussions we had at our last meeting is, well, what happens if we get what the governor is proposing? And that would be a $350 increase. And you can see as well, we're not looking at increasing the low revenue ceiling. Categorical aid is not looking to increase. However, we are looking to increase. If we did that, our budget variable would be 5% to a 40% reimbursement for our budget estimate for revenue. For per pupil increase, we'd get it about for $100 per pupil increase, that would increase our revenue by 300,000. If we get the $350 per pupil increase, that would give us over 1 million. And then the other big change would be the special education and reimbursement. We're currently looking at a 35% reimbursement for 300,000. If that goes to 40%, that would increase our revenue by 300,000. So the revenue impact, obviously, with our projected, we're looking at a deficit of about 333,000. But if we do get all the high revenue estimates that the budget that the governor proposed in his budget, that would be a little bit over $1 million shift. Expense variables. So when we start talking about some positions and everything like that, these are some assumptions. For every 1% we increase or decrease CPI, that budget impact is 170,000 across the board. And once again, it could be different, but that's an entire impact if we increase the administration, middle management, classified, and certified staff. 1%, that goes up $170,000 for our budget. Attrition. That means for every employee who resigns or retires, we're counting them as an approximate $10,000 savings. That's for budgetarily. Okay, that's just for a variable. The change in positions, one teaching position is 70,000, educational assistant 50, dean is 100, assistant principal about 102, and then a principal 114. I'm not sure if the assistant principal and principal are correct. I think we forgot to add benefits to those. So we got to increase that a little bit. I apologize for that. And for wage adjustments, we're going to talk about one of the board's priorities to have administration look at was entire wage adjustments for the co-curricular schedule. If we would increase a 0.5% across the board, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, The budgetary impact is about $36,000 for every 0.5% across the board. Health insurance, currently we're looking at a renewal of 17%. Every time that decreases by 1%, that's a $57,000 budget savings. Or if it increases by 1%, that's a $57,000 adjustment. So right now we're looking at a 17.5% insurance, health insurance, which we're currently estimating in the budgetarily 10%, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's a 7.5 times 57. So you're looking at almost a $400,000 impact without any changes. So our current expense estimates, this is where we're at currently. CPI, I mentioned CPI before. As our middle or our projected, you can go as high as you want, but for this assumption, we're going to assume 4% CPI as a high estimate. Attrition is 7. That is our current attrition at this time. So that's high or low, that's actual average. The change in teachers, the 5.5, that is with the proposed additional reductions that the board did not act on last board meeting. The high is we stay status quo. No more reductions are made. Same thing with educational assistants. And then the dean, assistant principal, and principal. Once again, the deans have already been approved. Assistant principal and principal, these are budgets. Okay, these are budget figures. That's why a principal is in there, because Mr. Roddick's position budgetarily has been eliminated. We replaced it with an assistant principal, but that's a wash, but budgetarily we have to make that accounted for. And we mentioned the co-curricular wage adjustment. We're projecting already a 0.5 increase or a $36,000, or we could go as high as 100,000, for example, or as high as you wanted, but we're going to put that in for about $100,000 increase. And then health insurance we talked about as well. We're budgeting 10%, but the actual renewal came in at 17.5. So these are the budgetary impacts. If we go from a 2% CPI to a 4%, you see the increase and all the way down across the board. Once again, the teachers and educational assistants, the middle, the projected is the administrative recommendation. The high is what we're currently at right now if no other reductions are taking place. Same thing with health insurance and co-curricular wage adjustments. We had a priority, put 3 slots for priority for SEL, social emotional learning, facilities. And then we had changes to all the other expenses, which we've already increased, fuel by 5%, some other, some adjustments. We're looking at the expenses of about over $1.5 million more of expenses if we go with the high, from 193 to 1.8 million of expenses. Once again, these are just projections. Doesn't mean we have to go with high, doesn't mean we have to go with low, doesn't mean we have to go with medium. They're just ideas that we threw out there. And I'm going to stop there before we go on with the report.
Any questions for Mr. Russ from board members?
We have more to go, but
Yeah,
I
this will
just
be
wanted, if there are any questions on what's been presented thus far.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Thank you. I guess my slide isn't numbered. It's the expense budget variables where it says CPI 1% and it notes 170,000. My question is on attrition, and I know there are no dumb questions, but I don't understand how attrition, when you're losing a position and we're not replacing it, how that impact is only at 10,000.
We are replacing that position. That would be a position. So Kyla is a teacher in our district. Kyla resigns. Budgetarily, we would plan on a $10,000 savings. Now, Kyla might be a 3-year teacher, might be a 5-year teacher, might be a 1-year teacher, but on average, that saves us $10,000 because the board has put in $1,500 for every year that Kyla's been here or TSA. So if Kyla doesn't stay through the full term to make that whole, the district gets that money back. So it's the savings in that along with the salary. So as an average, that's a $10,000 savings. So that's kind of how that works.
Thank you.
Further questions from board members? Mr. McKenna.
You had alluded to a little bit of good news with health insurance. Are we moving down from 17.5
Right now, we moved down from 17.5. Yes.
to 10?
We would need some budget, we would need some revisions, which the workshop will discuss, but we do have a lot more options. We're still waiting on more information. So sorry to keep you in suspense.
Understand.
Other questions or comments from board members?
I'm sorry, but even if we move down to 2%, that is a $110,000 savings that we didn't have to bump up to.
Mr. Burns Gilbert, did you? Yeah, go for it.
I just had a few questions here. I believe it's slide 46, the revenue budget impact. Can you just do overview of the almost $1,957,000 of all other changes to revenue there?
Is this what we're looking at, this one?
Yep.
This one, okay. So the revenue per pupil, the $300,000 in the middle, that assumes a $100 per pupil increase. And the high, and this is revenue coming in. So we would get an additional $700,000 of revenue if there's a $350 per pupil increase. So there's a change in over 700,000. That is the biggest impact on that slide. Everything else would remain the same, minus the special ed, I'm sorry. Special ed, we're projecting at a 35% reimbursement. The high side, or what ask was from the governor, was a 40%. So the difference in 5% from 35 to 40% gives us an additional $300,000 in revenue.
And that
So
957 doesn't change regardless of.
that does not change.
Can we use the revenue stabilization we set aside for offsetting some of these costs, or maybe some of the facilities or social emotional learning priorities?
Yes, so the board set aside, I believe I'm just going to use $550,000, I believe, for budget stabilization, maybe a little less. Okay. To date, we have not touched that yet. And the last time we ran these numbers, we were still looking at $130,000 surplus. So we could use the 550 and whatever's left over. Whatever's left over, the 100, we're just going to say 130 is still staying the same. We could set that aside for budget stabilization as well, if we wish to do so. The downside of that is that but stabilization is not the best way to do things long term. Because if we use roughly 700,000 of budget stabilization for next year, that $700,000 isn't guaranteed in revenue because that just falls off. And we have ESSER funding as well.
And then my other question was I think it was the co-curriculars. You had the 0.5% was 36,000. What do you know what that would be if we just did the market adjustments like we did with the other employees last spring?
So if we did market adjustments across the board, for every 0.5% we increase everybody, that's a $36,000 increase.
Right. But if we just increase the positions that need it versus like with the STEM or some of the ones that we didn't increase as much last year was because they were already.
Yep, the board could say, yep, we're looking, administration, that'd be my recommendation, administration. We're setting in the budget priority, which is coming up. I'm making this up. This is fictitious. $150,000 towards market adjustments in the co-curricular realm, done very similarly to what we did with the classified staff when we separated nutrition services, custodians, educational assistants, secretaries. We can do that. Okay, and there's going to be a slide coming up that'll delineate how many in each: advisor, coach, regular stipend. So we could take a look at that, and we do have some data that shows where positions are in our area. Very similar to what we did with the classified and administration.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from Mr. Russ? Go ahead, Mr. McKenna.
Has there been any more discussion out of the joint finance committee that we know of? Leo was saying when that comes out, typically it doesn't wander very far from that amount.
They've only had one, maybe two sessions. I know there's one coming up in the Dells, Eau Claire, and in Minocqua at Lakeland Union High School. I got a report that from the southeast side that there were some asks that might not have been asked before. But I don't have anything in general to do that. I know districts are starting to say, hey, this is what our district needs. This is what special ed. So there's a lot of talk about how can we be unified in the per pupil and categorical aid and percent of special ed and that sort of thing. Low revenue ceiling, with that talk, do you increase everybody by 350 or just the ones that are on the low end? There's a lot of discussions, but I have not had the summary yet.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. Russ? All right, go ahead, Mr. Russ. Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys read my mind. Co-curricular wage adjustments. This just kind of illustrates what we're looking at. If we look at market adjustments per contract and that sort of thing. So if we do everybody, cost to increase. And once again, we do not need to do we'll just say a 1% across the board for a $136,000 increase. We don't have to do that. If the board wants to, that's perfectly fine. But the board could say X amount targeted at these specific groups. The board could say X amount, administration, bring our market comparables so we can take a look at things. So we can do X, Y, and Z, or administration, bring your recommendations to make us market adjustments. So it is, once again, that's the co-curricular wage adjustment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all or none.
Mr. Hendricks, go ahead.
Thank you. So it's based on the base wage, which I assume is this year's base wage.
This year's base wage, yes.
So the increase per contract wouldn't necessarily be the amount that's listed there at any of those percentages.
That's just the average.
Go ahead, Mr. Russ. Or Mr. Hendricks, were you finished? I'm sorry.
Well, so if they're, maybe my math is really bad, but if base wage even goes up 1%, then instead we're looking at a 1.25% increase. Is that fair to say? Not a 0.25%.
Well, if base wage increases, we'll just say to $42,000.
Okay.
Then the 0.25 increase to the total increase per contract would be $104 roughly. If they put a 0.25% increase. I think if I'm reading that correctly.
I'm sorry.
The 1% would be 420 instead of 416.
Yeah.
If it moves up to the base wage goes to 42,000.
It'd be 420.
Yeah, so it's $4 additional.
Okay.
If it were
So
to go
not
up.
a significant.
No.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the 327 positions are grouped into like that. We have 75 advisors, 80 leaders, 72 mentors, and 100 coaches or athletics. Any other questions on co-curriculars?
All right, Mr. Russ, go ahead.
All right, Fund 46. Giving the wealth of our organizational health in Fund 46. Little history on Fund 46. We initially put $100 in. Many years ago. We added 1.4 million in building sales, 2.7 in year-end contributions. Instead of putting that into fund balance, the board has decided to put that in there. And we've got over $100,000 in interest income. I thought that was pretty darn good. For a total of about 4.2 million. And then we added, these are the expenditures. Playground at Southside. And you will see here on the right side, some of these projects were both fund balance and Fund 46. Okay. Some of them are both. We had to balance some things come up, and we've paid for these already. The biggest expenditure out of Fund 46 was about 3.1 million for Memorial Field. And we also have a $250,000 from the gridiron withstanding. Currently, we're looking at the auditorium. The original budgetary figure was about 440. The architect study was taken out of Fund 46, so the remaining budget is approximately 420,000. The current estimate is just under 500,000 for the entire project at the SHS. So our current balance that it's available in Fund 46, excuse me, we have our revenue of 4.2, expenditures of 3.4, with an approximate 850,000 in Fund 46. Right now, I mentioned the 250,000 less from the gridiron. The gridiron is going to be giving us that money. They've agreed to that. They're going to stick with that agreement. So currently we have about $540,000, $530,000 in that account. And if the auditorium project would be paid in full, we would have about $17,000 left in that Fund 46. Which would leave us little for contingency and for other projects. Mr. McKenna, I know he has a question, so I'm Mr. Schulze. I'm just going to call on Mr. McKenna.
Go for it. Absolutely.
Okay, can you back up one slide? So the 840 assumes that the Gridiron Club has already given us the 250?
Yes.
They haven't yet, but they're going to.
Yes.
And then will that go back into Fund 46 when they give it to us?
Yes. Because it was for the Memorial Field project.
Okay. And when timeline, when approximately does this happen?
I know we're working with them to get us a $50,000 check. And then we would work out the plan and go forth with that. So we're going to go
over time.
Over time. Yes. Yes. But we're not looking at tomorrow.
Other questions from board members? Mrs. Lopez, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Best, that $250,000 contribution from the Gridiron Club, is that the repayment on the loan that we took out in their name with the city?
It is not my understanding. That's not my understanding.
This is separate.
This is a separate.
Has that loan been repaid?
I believe the other loan has been repaid, but this would be a separate loan.
Loan.
This is a separate loan, yes. When we started to go through this process, from what I understand, the Gridiron pledged $250,000.
I don't think it would be considered a loan because we didn't loan the money to them. We just accepted a commitment from them to pay us $250,000.
We accepted their commitment, however, very similar to what we did with the Gridiron building. I believe we took out the loan for them.
Yes.
I believe we're doing that again.
So we took out a loan, we didn't take it out of Fund 46?
We have not, we took it out of Fund 46 originally. However, the Gridiron said that, nope, we're going to give $250,000 to the project above what they've already done. So from Leah's discussions with the Gridiron, they understand that they still have a $250,000 commitment to us. And we'll go through our paperwork and that sort of thing, very similar to when we did, when we built the gridiron building. We took out the loan and they did the repayment and that sort of thing.
How does that add to our balance, though?
Memorial Field's already been paid, we'll say, yet they still owe us $250,000 of their commitment. So that's where it's adding to the fund balance.
So, and maybe it's semantics, but so we didn't borrow that money from an institution and have to pay it back to an institution. We borrowed it from ourselves, in effect, from the.
Yes, we
46.
borrowed, yes, I
Correct.
guess that'd be a way to
Okay.
put it. Yes, we
So
borrowed it
when
against
they
Fund 46 and now they have to pay us back.
It's accounting jargon. It just accounts receivable. It counts as revenue.
Yeah.
So
No, I understand Ms. Lopez's point. If it was a loan, you would need to repay the loan to the lender.
Yes.
But in this case, we are the lender.
We are the.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Mr. Burns Gilbert.
I was just say maybe a month or two, overview of Memorial Field, all things considered will be helpful whenever that is possible.
In what way? Just in general?
Further questions, comments from Mr. Russ before he moves on to facility priorities? All right, go ahead, Mr. Russ. Thank you.
All right, facility priorities. Ms. Hauser and Mr. Drury worked looking at some possible ideas. But looking at our priorities first, safety and security is number one, physical condition, curricular needs, co-curricular needs, that community use side. And really keep in line, is there any potential overlap with the facility assessment and master plan that we're going through right now? So, how do they interact? You're going to start to see some high priority things. Resurfacing at the track. These are just ideas. These aren't in any particular order. These are just ideas that were brainstormed that are very high needs. Resurface of the track, auditorium, sound and light, our boilers at Montessori, SHS's auxiliary gym or the old gym, HVAC, air handler controls at Meadowview, and boilers at Meadowview. All ideas for high priority needs, but once again, is this overlapping with a potential looking at our facilities assessment? More ideas for high priority, floor scrubber, district-wide vehicles, door frames, doors and door frames at Montessori, entry canopy at Montessori, dumpster enclosures, and resurfacing those tennis courts at Meadowview. Anytime we can replace LED, our lighting with LED, and looking at our first priorities would be our parking lots. And there are a lot of big projects that when you hear things that most likely would have to be funded outside of our operating budget every year. And some of these ideas are listed there. And none of these are relatively new. SHS's locker rooms, weight rooms, auditorium, tech ed areas, kitchen. And then at Southside and Montessori, we have flooring, cabinetry, lighting upgrades, making sure that our ADA accessible at our outdoor venues. There's that outdoor space. So a lot of ideas for big picture items. Is there any questions on facilities at this time?
Questions or comments for Mr. Russ from board members? Go ahead, Mr. Hendricks.
Yeah, Mr. Russett, the amount that was listed here for the auditorium, I think it was different than what you had estimated earlier. Is this does this include other things for the auditorium?
That included the approximately $20,000 of the study. So it's approximately 520,000.
Oh, I see. So it's something, part of that's already
Yep.
paid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments for Mr. Russ? All right, hearing none.
All right.
Go ahead, Mr.
Any
Russ.
questions on the entire report now on the entirety? if anything resonates or anything like that before we move on to the business items.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
So can I make a mention back at the co-curricular market adjustments?
Okay.
Would it be possible for the board to receive the comparables or the local comparables that we have for each of those positions like we had last year?
Sam, I
Or,
can do that right now. Okay.
okay, you have those?
Well,
We-
it's straight up.
We have, yes, and looking at the data, and we can share it within the weekly notes. It looks like our coaches are in the market area are well compensated. Being in the top 3, like we talked about with the classified staff. And then our advisors and some of our other positions are out of market adjustment. So, but we can get you the exact data.
So remind me, last year, did we go within a certain percentage of market or number 3?
We looked at number 3.
Number
Yeah,
3.
we were trying to be number 3 across the board. There were a number of facets that I came up with like 7 or 8 different options, and we were able to come to an agreement on one of them and go with that.
And
but-
so are we looking potentially at number 3 for the co-curricular as well? The numbers that you've provided are for number 3?
If that's the direction that we were going to look for, we can give you that information. Yep.
I think we need some more information.
And we can definitely do that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the priorities and down the road too.
Mr. Russ, when it gets to the point of discussing these in more detail, I would appreciate a spreadsheet that shows the information on boilers in all of our buildings as far as when they're going to be past their useful life. I'm old enough now, unfortunately, that I remember installing, I didn't personally install them, but installing these boilers. And we reinstalled, put in new boilers in almost all of the buildings within, 5 years, I'm sure, because it was part of a referendum. So if the boilers in Montessori are past their useful life, I've got to believe that's going to be a common problem for more than just that building.
Yeah, we have according to this, Mr. Drury, looking at, I believe you look at our long range plan and it'll have the recommended lifespan.
Okay.
We're looking at Meadowview, Montessori, HVAC equipment for the old gym, the control panels as well, part of it all. So, but I can get you, would the long range plan work? Will you put the long range plan in the notes, or would you like more specifics?
That's fine. If it has that information, I'm sure you're right.
Further questions or comments from Mr. Russ before we move into the business items? All right, item 3A, discussion and possible action to approve priorities for the 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Russ.
All right, there were 3 areas that the board asked administration to take a look at for priority areas to give you some ideas. And the first I want to, we've already talked a little bit about the co-curriculars and we've talked about the long range or the facility. One thing we have not discussed yet is the socio-emotional learning support. So working through cabinet and through, the big picture, we've came up with some ideas. What could additional SEL support look like? Before I get into this, I do want to let you know that we do have the funds available through our grants for the SEL curriculum for next year. That is already a priority for administration to embed and have scheduled time across the board for specific SEL curriculum work. Okay, so that is already taken care of. Once we get that curriculum finalized, we're working with our buildings to get that set. We'll be giving a report to the board about what that entails for next year. So the curriculum is already taken care of. So I did not list that on this slide. But when we talk SEL, first thing that came up, it was interesting, universal free breakfast and lunch. Looking in the past, wanted to figure out how much would that cost? A couple of years ago, we were asked that, and it was about $355,000 for January through May. So approximately 70,000+ per month for universal breakfast and lunch. One thing that's is getting more common is SEL coaches. And this is for initial and ongoing staff trainings and implementations. We're finding as we go through things, who owns this? Leah owns the budget. Liz owns communications. Well, who's going to own SEL? Who's going to own ACP? Who's going to own this? So having additional coaches, responsive classroom coaches. We've invested in responsive classroom, continue to look to give our staff the quality professional development. So how do we get our classroom coaches? That could be train the trainer models, but additional funding there. A progress monitoring tool to get a pulse of what our kids are thinking. Part of the one of the curriculums we're looking at does have a progress monitoring tool built in as part of their curriculum. Social workers, restorative practice trainers. How can we really build their capacity in that restorative side? We had a school psychologist report last time. Do we need more school psychologists? Do we need more school counselors? Do we need to look for an in-house therapist or a counselor? Currently, we have some outside vendors that come in that help our kids. Do we need to look to contract with one of those our own? I know some schools in northern Wisconsin do that. Behavior coaches, and these coaches work with students and staff about how do we help kids reintegrate students into the classroom? How can we give universal support? How can we give engagement, even at a deeper level? Those are some ideas that we came up with in the budget report earlier. On the high end, we put in, I believe, $280,000 additional for that. Okay. And then we had the capital improvements and the co-curricular market adjustments as well, which I don't have any slides for as we went through those already.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Russ to start off with? Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Thank you. So the 280,000 high estimate did not include the curriculum. That's in addition to the curriculum for which we have grants
Correct.
to pay for.
Correct.
Are those federal grants?
Yes.
Are there any obligations that come with those grants? In terms of SEL, the types of things that are taught in that curriculum?
Believe so. The one is the DODEA grant. And that one, it just says SEL. There's no, we didn't specify what curriculum that was. The other fund that we're looking to use is the Getting Kids Ahead grant fund. And that also does not have specifics that you can choose from, as part of that grant. So no.
Further questions? Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Yes, thank you. Could you please define restorative practice trainer? What is and especially what is the restorative portion of that?
Yeah, the restorative side is Kyla does something wrong to me. I would never do something wrong to Kyla. So Kyla does something wrong to me. And to understand that, to repair the relationship, Kyla and I are in the same class for the whole day, and we need to be able to get along. Okay, Kyla needs to be able to get along with me, and I need to be able to forgive Kyla for whatever action she did. So it really brings the adults together. It's a team approach. Can be as easy as the teacher bringing, Mr. Collins Gilbert brings us in and says, "Hey, Kyla, this is how we have to do. How are we going to make it better? Do you understand how Sam felt during that time? Do you understand this? Do you understand that?" There's trainings to help our staff repair that relationship as quick as possible. And to really say, you know what? Sam's not going away. Kyla, we're not going to move you out. How can we repair that relationship to move forward, to restore that trust that Kyla needs to have in the classroom with the teacher and with me specifically, since she did something to me that was against our code of conduct. So it's really to train Mr. Sanders does a very nice job with this. I'll give him kudos to that. He's had a lot of training, and CISA's worked with, has some trainings on restorative practices in the classroom. If something happens in the classroom, how do we repair it as soon as possible, rather than Kyla, you go to the office?
So it's for something that occurs within the code of conduct, not necessarily a perceived situation. It's something that violates our code of conduct.
Typically, it's something that violates the code of conduct. Kyla calls me a name. Well, and then we go through that process. Say, do you understand this? Do you understand that it was wrong? You know, really work together with that to have Kyla understand that what she did was wrong, understand how it made me feel, and repair that relationship, because we're going to be side by side at the monkey bars in a little while.
And then, thank you. And then the in-house counselors and therapists, the therapists, would that include mental health therapists only, or occupational therapists as well, which sometimes I know are beneficial to children with behavioral issues?
Yep. For the SEL side, most likely it would be for behavioral health. We do have occupational therapists, and we do contract with CISA for additional services through that. Mostly because finding an OT person is almost impossible. We even tried to this year. We posted for an OT and PT person. We just couldn't find anyone at that time. Same thing with speech. We do some services with speech through telespeech and presence learning. We actually tried to get somebody, and I think we're pretty close to getting someone so we can keep it in-house.
I would also advocate for community involvement in anything that we do with SEL. I sent you an email, you and Mr. Schulze, and there was some positive feedback regarding that. I think that there are benefits that the district would see from some type of social emotional learning. And yet I also believe that there are lightning rod topics that the community is aware of regarding social emotional learning. And if we are able to clearly and openly explain what is in our curriculum and what is not in our curriculum, and how our curriculum is for Sparta Area School District and the needs here, and not the greater concerns of the country or other areas, we would have, I believe we would be able to have a lot of community support for this as well. But without those things, I'm concerned.
Because we're going to have to define what SEL. A lot of people don't know what social emotional learning is.
Yes.
And so we're going to, when we start going through this, when we start selecting, we will be giving a report, big, a major report about this is what it is. And this is why that all of our kids need SEL support, not just the ones, that think that, nope, I'm good. I know what's going on in here, because the research is very clear. Over time, more students start to have mental health issues. And how do we start to be proactive? So if a student starts to feel unwell, just like they say, Mom, my tummy doesn't feel well. How can we give them the supports that if something else doesn't feel well, that they can reach out for the support?
Yes, and by providing the information of what it is and what it is not.
Mhm.
And if there are things that may be concerning to people, that we bring those to the forefront openly without having, that we're proactive in that.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Mr. Burns Gilbert, this was a priority that you had brought up. Do you have any other comments, questions, thoughts on this for Mr. Russ or further administration?
No, I think these are good ideas. I think it's part of the bigger picture with what that looks like, but the 288,000 is already with the curriculum. So that's not, all of that would be separate costs, right?
That's an additional, yes.
That was just want to make sure I heard that right. But
Yep.
these would all be ideas under that separate cost, other than the monitoring you said might be built into the curriculum.
Yes. So these would be additional since it was since it was directed as a priority.
Yeah.
Currently, we have $0 budgeted for this. an addition besides the grant funded and that sort of thing. So if the board would say, hey, I'd like to commit, I think we should commit 70,000, 100,000, for example, we would be able to start to prioritize, okay, what can we do for $100,000? How can we have the biggest benefit return on our investment on that $100,000 and come up with more of a generic plan? Because $100,000, for instance, won't get us to universal breakfast and lunch. That's where that budgetary figure is important, to say, okay, what are some things that we can move forward with, and maybe some guidance from the board to say, yeah, I think we need some coaches, let's try to explore an in-house counselor or therapist. What happens? What is it going to look like with a social worker? How would that work?
Do we know how much of those ideas that were generated could be covered from DODEA or the other grants? Do we know about that breakdown at this stage, or is that too early? That would be super helpful, right? Especially if something like this might be a phased approach of a pilot here and a couple, adjustment in a year or two, right? That's kind of where my head goes, but not knowing what's covered in the federal cost versus what would be Fund 10.
Yep. So what my initial thought to that is universal free. I'm just going to go down the list. Wouldn't be covered. SEL coaches would not be covered. Responsive classroom coaches, I think, could potentially be covered under DODA, because that was part of the responsive classroom coming in. The progress monitoring tool, if it's not, that probably wouldn't. Social workers, restorative practice trainers, we might be able to, I'm thinking out loud, we might be able to fit that under, and it'd be a small one, train the trainer type deal. Additional school counselor and school psychologist, probably not. In-house counselor therapist, probably not. And behavior coaches, probably not. So we're really looking at the bigger things besides the trainings, probably from a Fund 10 perspective.
Thank you.
Mr. Hendricks, go ahead. Yeah.
So, Mr. Russ, clarify for me that $280,000 that was mentioned. That's the grant money that's available?
No,
Where did we come up with this?
that was just a number that we arbitrarily threw out if we wanted to increase that. So part of it was looking at SEL coaches, looking at possibly one pre-K through 4, 5 through 12.
Okay,
Or
so-
that would be, so it's just an arbitrary number that Leah and I picked out and said, yep, let's just throw that out there. And it could be more.
But it's based on some ideas that you have already, basically. is what
It'd
you're
be
saying.
looking at potentially adding 4 new staff. 280,000, just roughly 4 new staff if we wanted to do that. Behavior coaches, 2 behavior coaches, 2 SEL coaches.
Thank you.
Mr. Russ, do you require that? I mean, we don't have to say this is what it is tonight, correct? We can provide guidance to you to provide further information.
Yeah, so what we're hoping for from the priorities is to move forward in the budgetary process. So if the board says, hey, we're going to give 100,000 to SEL, we want to do 100,000 in market adjustments for co-curriculars, and we want to do $100,000 in facility upgrades. That means there's $300,000 that we need to go back into our budget and carve out. And if the board says, nope, our budget, we're going to, after seeing this and understanding our budgetary picture a little bit better at this time, even though these are very important, we can only do the market adjustments and $50,000 in facilities. That's once again, it sends administration back to the budgetary table and says, how can we carve out things? That's what we're kind of looking for moving forward, because we want to try our best to finalize what our budgetary picture is going to look like by establishing our priorities, because after this, we're talking staffing.
So from my viewpoint or my standpoint, I guess from an SEL standpoint, I was looking to ask administration to allocate around $100,000 to $150,000, depending on what you as a board feel, and to come back to us with options of how they could utilize that funding.
So we're not approving $150,000. We're just asking for.
This is a motion to provide guidance.
you would prioritize how they would recommend we use $150,000. Because quite frankly, my position on this is until we've got a handle on staffing and pay for our staff and so on, even talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars going to various areas just makes me a little bit nervous.
Even having the discussion to ask
Well,
for guidance.
As long as we understand that this is the word, it's almost hypothetical. I mean,
Mhm. Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. When it came to the market adjustments, I was gonna say, here's a number, see what you can do and have it back to us at the next committee of the whole. Because we've got a lot of decisions to make prior to that. Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Right, so I have a question about the curriculum. If we have a grant that would purchase the curriculum. Well, my first question is, you said that was integrated. Would that take time out of the classroom for other subjects that would be assigned to the SEL curriculum? And my second question is, how much money do we have as grants instead of purchasing a curriculum, which may be helpful, but maybe we could use that money instead for those two, for the classroom, responsive classroom coaches and restorative practice trainers, instead of purchasing the curriculum. That way we get some of the benefits that we wanted without having additional expense to the district.
So to take your first question, yes, we are looking at carving out time and during the day. Herman and the lower elementaries are increasing their time for next year. Meadowview and the SHS have the time built in with grad group, morning meeting and advisory. So the biggest, I don't want to say change, but the time commitment will be at the elementary level when teaching these lessons. So that's that one. Yes, it's going to be carved out. And to answer your question is and I don't know how much money we have aside, and I don't know, I'll have Ms. Mansky talk about whether we can, instead of paying for $100,000 in curriculum, we can pay $100,000 in people. We'll just say that. The benefit of the universal curriculum means every kid gets it, regardless, rather than, well, Colin, I'm sorry, we'll we don't want to say that. Kyla, I think you need some SEL support. Let's bring in Kyla because we think, rather than teaching it, just like bringing in a math tutor and not having a strong math curriculum, we're just picking you. So what we're in best practice, and the research is showing that a strong universal SEL curriculum is just as important as a strong academic curriculum, because we need to teach our kids how to deal with the struggles that may not even be there yet for them. So it's really to give them the capacity to make sure that their emotional learning is sound, their social emotional learning is sound. So the universal curriculum, in my mind, benefits and outweighs having an SEL coach or a responsive classroom coach that may only affect Kyla and me. So we can really make that return on our investment during that time. And I'll let Kyla talk about the grant side.
So I also just want to add, Blair Taylor did a model where they kind of developed their own curriculum. And we have looked at, what it would take for us to do something simple. And the bottom line is it would take hours and hours and hours of work to develop our own. And we don't feel like we have the skill set or the knowledge base to know what's right. So going back to that universal instruction, being able to have something like, maybe I'm really intuitive and I'm really in touch with my feelings and I can really teach something well because I can do it, but maybe Mr. Burns-Gilbert can't. And so by having that curriculum, we're making sure that all teachers are able to teach that because they have a resource. As far as the grants, the DODEA grant is $500,000 over 5 years. And that is for two big goals. One of those big goals is that SEL. And the other big goal is like a STEM-based, project-based learning, supporting math, science areas. So again, over 5 years, and we try to like budget out, a quarter, a fifth of that each of those years. For the other grant that we talked about, the Getting Kids Ahead, that one is roughly $100,000, and it's like, once it's gone, it's gone.
So in using grant money, I know Ms. Mansky mentioned Blair Taylor. Sometimes our grant money, we got to be careful because it has to be research-based. And that's the kicker, is really understanding how do we know that a curriculum is research-based, because they're, you trust the researchers. And I know, Ms. Lopez, you mentioned big and that sometimes that's the best we can do is that kids are kids. I know that the resources adjust to a lot and trust that when they did the research, they just weren't looking at an urban setting in this part of the state. They have to be able to pick a lot of different varieties of schools.
May I have
Yeah, go
another
ahead.
comment? So the STEM camp is paid for, that we have every year, is paid for with the DODEA grant. Is that correct? And so a portion of that is already allocated for this year.
That's a great question, and it gets kind of confusing because yes, it's DODEA funded. However, it's not our DODEA grant. It's actually this organization called STEM Camp that puts on these camps. And so they separate funds than our DODEA grant.
Okay, that's good. My next question is about, you mentioned math tutor. So we don't provide a math tutor for children who don't need math. I know you said that all students can benefit from SEL, but for a student who is not engaged in that, having to sit through that, is that going to be beneficial to them, or will it just maybe bring out behaviors in a student that we wouldn't normally have behaviors in because they're having to engage in this process that doesn't really interest or affect them?
And that's part of the curriculum's engagement side. And that's where when they, I know Kyla and Lisa have been leading that engagement, that SEL curriculum, the teachers have, the classroom teachers have looked at them and saying, this is engaging. This is something that, this is not something that won't fit or work with our types of kids. So they really looked at those types of lessons and how can we engage the kids in those lessons. But as Kyla said, we need to make sure the teachers are engaged in those lessons as well, because you're exactly right. If the teacher says this is not needed, just go on your iPad and play this math game. That's not going to do anybody any good. And that goes against everything we're trying to do. So I don't see, because if it was the fear, I don't think this curriculum would be out there, because it has to be engaging and the teachers have to be really in tune with it to make sure that every kid can benefit from it. And it's really to break that stereotype that, you know what, Mr. Burns Gilbert, he's a good kid. He doesn't live in poverty. He's good to go. Mr. McKenna, whoa, he lives in poverty, maybe some behavioral issues. So it's really to let everybody get that universal, regardless of who you are. And that is so important what the research is showing, because the research is showing that Colin still has a very high probability moving forward. It might be when he becomes an adult, but that curriculum pre-K through 12 will hopefully build Colin's resilience and capacity to deal with something that comes up.
Go ahead, Mr. Hendricks.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, the whole idea. I like the curriculum idea because it's going to be lasting. If we invest in personnel, we'll have, I'm sure, skilled professionals for a few years, but they will go away. And under this plan, hopefully the curriculum will remain viable and useful for many years.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to provide guidance to administration about the SEL ideas and priorities.
I'll make that motion.
All right, and how much would you like to allocate?
I will support your suggestion of $150,000.
Okay, I have a motion to support allocation of $150,000 for administration to look at opportunities.
Specifically to SEL, correct?
This is specifically to SEL.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Burns Gilbert. Is there any further discussion?
Just to be clear, this is not an allocation of funds. This is just to
Absolutely
look
not.
into it.
Guidance.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would, I envision this list becoming a lot less. Because as I pointed out, the universal free breakfast and lunch won't fit in the 150,000.
All right, so I have a motion from Mr. Hendricks. I have a second from Mr. Burns Gilbert. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. As far as co-curricular market adjustments, Mr. Russ, I feel like you and I are one step ahead of everybody else. So I think we have some guidance to provide to the rest of the board before we make a decision with this. The one thing I will ask from the board, because you will be receiving this information, is I would entertain a motion to provide or to provide guidance about what they would utilize $108,000 for when it comes to co-curricular market adjustments. And that will make a lot more sense once you have the following information, the rest of the information. Again, this isn't allocating, this is providing guidance to our administration.
Within full faith, I would make that motion.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Wells. Do I have a second on this?
I will second that.
A second from Mrs. Lopez. Further discussion. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
Hendricks.
So I'm wondering why we just say 108,000, why not say, 80,000, 100,000 and 120,000 and then we would have an idea of how those amounts impact the outcome.
How about
But maybe there's a
Gotcha.
reason for
There,
108.
yes, there is a reason, but what I maybe could say is up to $108,000, nothing beyond that, because again, the information that do you want, otherwise I can touch on it, but
So we looked at, part of our things that we were looking at is we did market adjustments for our administration, middle management and classified. We looked into co-curriculars. And we have some comparables from our local districts about what would it look like and some general ideas about, hey, if we keep, I'm just going to say coaches status quo, because according to the market, they are compensated in the top three. But if we look at those who are not compensated in the top three, what that would look like to get them into the 1, 2, or 3, knowing that it is, we can do that. And that approximately looked at about $100,000.
yeah,
In adjustments to make our advisors more in the market similar to our coaches.
Yep.
Not the same, but similar in that market adjustment to do that.
yeah, it brings us up to that number 3 level for our advisors, our mentors, and our leaders. And that, again, this is providing guidance or asking to provide guidance on what that 108,000 would look like, with the understanding that you're going to be receiving more information before we ever make a decision on this. Go ahead, Mr. McKenna.
Portion of that 108 already accounted for in the budget.
Yes, about 25,000 is already accounted for.
36, I believe, according to the slides.
So again, when we did the original budget, there was some already allocated in there. This is asking for some additional, but not the full 108,000, but that'll get us where we need to, from a discussion standpoint, to make some decisions. Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Do we have a difficulty filling those positions from our staff base? Or are they just basically volunteering their time compared to what they could get if they went elsewhere?
I don't want to say volunteering their time. Are they
Comparatively?
compensated compared to our regional or to our market, to our peers locally? No, some of them are not.
Do we have a difficult time filling those positions?
Mr. Russ, I would say we have a very committed staff and committed mentors that money is second when it comes to providing that stability for our disadvantaged students, our advantaged students, so.
Some of our positions, some of our advisors, think of DECA when Miss Adams was up here. Miss Adams is one of our business teachers. So a lot of our advisor positions are attached curricularly, which it makes sense to be the co-curricular advisor. So are we having a hard time filling some? Yes. Miss Iverson and does a great job with prom. I know a lot of people can't find a prom advisor, can't find a homecoming advisor, can't find a mentor, can't find someone to run the spelling bee. But as Mr. Schulze said, we have a very dedicated staff and we're looking for more ideas as well. We have a lot of people that do volunteer their time that go through our process and say, you know what, we have 15 kids that are dedicated to this. We have an advisor. We go through a year and then they get added to the list because they have that dedication.
And I'd go a step further to say that if we make no adjustment, these advisors, mentors, and leaders would probably keep doing it exactly the same. This is just to be fair with the rest of the region and how we truly value our mentors, leaders, and advisors. So with that, any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Hendricks. Yeah.
So instead of bringing us different amounts up to 100,000, I'm sensing here, we're talking about bringing them up so that they rank, in the fourth or third or whatever in comparables as we did with the rest of our staff. So can you bring in how much, with this plan, how much it would be to, where they are now, and I don't know where they are now.
Yeah.
But where they are now, how much it would cost to bring them up 2 steps, 1 step, whatever, so that we have a range of things to look at.
I'm envisioning something very similar to what we did with the groups that we already talked about. So for instance, DECA, I'll use DECA for example. I think we'd be able to put in a comparison to make DECA number 3, and that's going to be a 0.5% increase. It costs that. If we want it 2, it'll be 1%. It'll cost that. And then if they want them to be at the top, it will cost them that. And I think we could do that with a lot of our positions.
Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, I just think it'll help us to understand the range and the options that we have.
And I don't think that's not an amendment to the motion. That's just a little further guidance for you, Mr. Russ.
It's just what information you would like to see, which is very good guidance. Perfect.
All right, Mrs. Lopez, go ahead.
Piggybacking off of Mr. Hendricks, would it include specifically West Salem, Onalaska, Holman, like we had last year?
That's what I'm envisioning.
Thank you. Okay, that's kind of what I was asking for previously, and so I
Oh.
appreciate that from
Yeah.
Mr. Hendricks. Thank you.
All right. Motion from Mr. Wells, second from, was it Mrs. Lopez? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those,
Josie, could you repeat the motion?
did you write that down? You wrote it down. I saw you writing over there.
Up to, let's see, it was Todd's original motion and up to $108,000 in co-curricular market adjustment ideas.
To be focused towards advisors, mentors, and
It's
leaders.
to make it a market adjustment ideas, which will focus in on the data.
All right.
Does that
All
make
in-
sense? I just want to make sure. Mr. Wells, that was Ms. Lopez, you seconded something similar? Okay,
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Those opposed? Motion carries. Capital improvements. Mr. Wells, I think this was yours. Anything further at this time or we continue to move? Go for it.
Yeah, certainly. $250,000 is even a bigger ask than what I was having. I mean, something that we could look into more or less than make a statement like we need exactly 500,000 every year. No, that's not what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to if there is any way where we could notch something off our capital improvement plans, so we're not continuing to kick the can down the road, as that causes problems in the long run.
All right. Is there further guidance you'd like to provide to administration from a capital improvements, or is that where you're at right there? And that's okay if you are.
So my philosophy is that a leaky roof is expensive, yes, but when it caves in, it's a lot more expensive. So those kind of things where I believe our capital improvements should be based on if this thing falls apart because we didn't properly maintain it, is it going to cost us a lot more in the wrong?
Okay.
And so more, instead of a capital improvement, think of it more of a capital investment plan. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. So what I would say with that is no further guidance, but just continue focusing on capital improvements. And if we see something, say something, right? Okay, perfect. Any further discussion as far as approved priorities? Mr. Hendricks, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question for Mr. Russ. Do school districts still have the authority to borrow up to $1 million without going to referendum for capital projects?
I can check into that, but I believe they can.
If you would check into that, I appreciate it. I don't want to upset anybody, but if we do face a dire capital improvement project, I think we need to know what our options are, and I believe we've done that at least once before.
So Mr. Russ, if you could look into that and let the board know, that'd be great.
Yeah, also, I just want to provide some guidance. This isn't mainly this year budgetary guidance, but 5-year plans, right? And so how can we utilize Fund 46 and whatnot, not necessarily in this budget, but maybe future budgets, and having that on the radar. Because like I said before, our community wasn't 100% down on the latest referendum, and now we have a $0 capital improvement budget. So we need to figure out a way or a method that we could use Fund 46 as a supplemental capital improvement budget when we do not have the funds in Fund 10 available.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. All right, item 3B, discussion and possible action to approve staffing decisions for the 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Russ.
All right, before we get into some additional staffing information, I do have this one slide. Excuse me. At our last meeting, we talked about the activity director roles at each school and looking to bring ideas from administration to see how we would handle those roles, along with some additional responsibilities, if any, for some ideas. So here are some ideas that are local ideas as well. Extra duty contract for the Meadowview AD. The importance of this is that it's still relationship and recruitment, and most likely best practices is that's in the building. So they can be out at lunch, they can, promote, because it is so important that our kids get involved in co-curricular activities for their curricular and just their overall health. Another idea is one AD for the entire district, SASD AD, to focus in on all of our activities 6 through 12, 5 through 12 with that. Another idea is SHS AD/facilities coordinator for the district. The benefit of having a district-wide facility coordinator is that the community has one place to go to if they want to reserve one of our buildings. It will streamline the process, and it will make it a consistent process. Our building principals do the best they can, or their designee. But if I want to know something at SHS, I'm talking to Mr. Blaha. If I want to go to Meadowview, I'm talking to Mr. Sanders. If I'm going to Herman, I'm talking to Mr. Oswald. If I go to Southside, I'm talking to Ms. Everson Riley. If I go to Montessori, and if you want to go to Maplewood, I don't know, just don't call me. But anyway, it has a consistency and our streamline our process. We have a budgeting process. We have it'll just streamline everything as an idea.
Mr. Russ, quick question on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So with that third bullet, it would be the Sparta High School Athletic Director and District Facility Coordinator.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes, not just SHS.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That would be a district facility coordinator.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Another idea is going back to the old model, SHS AD/charter school principal. Before we made the shift this past year, Mr. Blaha used to be the sales principal. Doesn't mean it has to be sales. It'd be another charter school. SHS AD/AP, kind of like the similar model now. And SHS only AD. Some schools just have a high school AD and that's all they do. So these were some ideas. There's 2 ideas that the administration would like to recommend. And it stays for consistency as well. The extra duty for Meadowview AD we've talked to Mr. Sanders, and Mr. Sanders is interested in that extra duty contract. That keeps the continuity for the position for next year for sure. It'd be an extra duty contract. It's outside his work time. But that would be an extra duty contract. And then the other one for Mr. Blaha, his position, would recommend the SHSAD and SASD facility coordinator. Those would be our two recommendations to fulfill those two roles for next year.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Russ? Mr. Hendricks, go ahead.
So the first bullet is an extra duty contract. The facility coordinator position is just an add-on. Is that how to read this?
That would replace the AP position at SHS. So it would be a replacement of SASD facility coordinator, and the AP position would be removed from the title. Knowing Mr. Blaha, if he's at the high school and something happens, he's there to support, just like any of our employees.
Mrs. Lopez, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. S. So the Sparta High School AD and District Facilities Coordinator position would be a zero budget impact.
Yes.
And other than CPI or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The extra duty for Meadowview AD, what would that contract look like in terms of cost for the district?
So it would come out of Fund 80. So the Mr. Sanders' current position would be fully funded out of Fund 10. That was an additional about 10,000. I'll just say $10,000. And we're looking at a stipend anytime, anywhere between 10 and 12,000 that would come out of Fund 80. So
How much time is anticipated for that position, that extra duty contract?
it's going to be setting up everything after school, officials, getting officials. Now, we still have a secretary at each of the buildings that would support with the organization and that sort of thing. Event supervision, they get workers and everything and working with the teams. So right now, Mr. Sanders, I bet probably, I don't want to speak for him, probably spends, it depends on the season, but probably an hour to 2 hours a day. And the 10 to 12,000 is approximately the full-time equivalent for a coach at Meadowview. So if I'm a football coach at Meadowview, I think it's $2,500 or $3,000. Basketball coach is about the same. Then you have winter basketball and then you have spring. So that's where the 10 to 12,000 comes into play. That's what a lot of other districts have done. They get paid the highest coach during that season.
Further questions or discussion for Mr. Russ? Go ahead, Mr. McKenna.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think from our discussions last year, middle school co-curriculars and AD can be paid out of Fund 80. High school cannot.
Correct.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Presswood Funkhauser.
So the Sparta High School AD would still report to who he currently reports to, and then also obtaining the facility coordinator's position, who would he report to at that time?
I would guess it would be Ms. Hauser, who oversees our oversees the budgeting and facility side of that. I would assume Ms. Hauser. However, I would need to speak with Ms. Hauser and that sort of thing. But I would envision Ms. Hauser anything with the facilities.
And would that take her away from anything else, or it would just fall into what she's already doing?
She now currently oversees our facilities. We have Sarah Nelson, who works in our business office, who does a lot of the facilities already. And that would help Sarah. If there's a question, you go to Mr. Blaha. If there's a invoice question, you go to Mr. Blaha in this case, rather than, oh yeah, Mr. Oswald and everything like that. It really streamlines our facilities, especially since they are used so frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And moving forward, that's one of the priorities that we had, to make sure that our uses are appropriate.
Right. And has there been any preemptive conversation with Mr. Blaha? Is he aware of this possibility, and what were his thoughts on
Yep.
it?
And he's in, I don't want to speak for him, but he said, well, being the military guy, he's first off said, I'll do whatever you tell me to do to the best of my, to fulfill the mission. But he was on board with this.
Thank you.
And so was Mr. Sanders. And so was Mr. Ott. So was Mr. Ford.
All right, so at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the extra duty contract for the Meadowview Activity Director. Well, let's do that first. So we'll break them out. So I'll entertain a motion for that extra duty contract.
I
I'll
will
make-
make, oh, go ahead.
Oh, please.
I will make that motion.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Prestwood Funkhauser,
And I'll second.
and I have a second from Mr. Hendricks. Roll call.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes,
Mr. Schulte.
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. And then I would also entertain a motion to approve the Sparta High School Activity Director / District Facility Coordinator.
I will make that motion as well.
I have a motion from Ms. Prestwood Funkhauser. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Mr. Wells. Any further discussion on this one? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Hendricks, Ms. Prestwood,
Yes,
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
McKenna.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Russ, go ahead.
All right, so thank you very much. We can move that forward. I do want to let you know, from the last meeting, the board did table the core teachers at Meadowview, along with the additional educational assistants. I did meet with Meadowview after school one day on a voluntary. We had, I think, around 30 people there. I stayed there for over 2 hours, and we had a listening session, and we talked through those things. So they're very passionate about their kids. I can tell you that. They're very passionate about the people that they work with. They're very passionate about Meadowview Middle School. So they did have an opportunity to discuss with me. They asked some questions that were futuristic. Then I was flat out saying that would be an administrative discussion. They were involved with some of the planning if this would move forward. And I think they have a better idea about the bigger picture as well, of the organization and how everything fits in. So we did have a good discussion. It is still my recommendation that those are still to be considered. And the one thing that I would ask the board, and this is a big ask and you don't have to do it, is if we make this decision sooner than later. Because the process for our staff can be to really finalize what the schedule would look like. What is it going to look like? What are people going to be teaching, and really start to dive into to get that collaborative effort and what it would look like to do that. The board has the option to say nope to all three, to only two, only one. Please know that I acknowledge that, but also please know that we're looking to make this decision sooner than later so we can move forward. Not just budgetarily, but as an organization to say, this is what our next year is going to look like. And that's what a lot of people are waiting on.
All right, so for the sake of discussion, I'm going to entertain a motion to reduce 1 6th grade, 1 7th grade, and 1 8th grade core teacher at Meadowview Middle School. Do I have a motion for that?
Mr. Schulte,
Yes,
instead
please.
of being specific, I think 3 core teachers at Meadowview would be a recommendation. That gives, I'm not saying it gives a little bit more leeway to latitude to the teams to say, hey, we're reducing 3 core teachers, but it also gives the latitude to the teams to say, what does that best look like? As an option, rather to be specific. I know we said 6th, 7th, and 8th, but once again, it gives the administration the leeway. It may end up being 6, 7, and 8, but there might be some more creative solutions out there to do that. But that would be one idea that you could have as well, but rather than being prescriptive.
So with that, I will entertain a motion to reduce 3 core teacher positions at Meadowview Middle School. Do
I'll make the motion to reduce 3 core teachers at Meadowview Middle School.
I have a motion from Mr. Wells. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Mr. Hendricks. Do we have further discussion on this? Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
So reducing 3 core teachers at Meadowview Middle could potentially save the district $210,000.
That is
240,
210.
210. Okay.
210. Yes, that would be budgetarily but please know that medium slide that we worked in the beginning of the special meeting, that was the assumption that this was going to happen. Just we had to make the assumption at some point.
I'm struggling with saving the district $210,000 in core teachers at Meadowview Middle and at the same time allocating $108,000 in guidance for market adjustments for co-curricular and advisory positions. That's a struggle.
And that makes sense. That's
Yes.
just guidance. Yeah, so, yep.
If I may speak to that.
Go ahead.
The reason I seconded that motion is I think we need to understand that the basis for having to make those difficult cuts is reduction in the number of pupils. I don't think we can set up a situation where a program is immune to those reductions. Obviously, it would be nice to be able to retain those teachers no matter what. But we have to look at the reality of it is as if class sizes go down, if the number of pupils in any certain grade goes down, we have to respond to that and can't say, well, I don't think it's wise to say, oh, you know, they need to be immune to that because we like this program. So it's not a pleasant decision by any means, but I think it's the prudent decision.
I think it's also apparent to clarify that it's not teachers, it's teacher positions, right? So we're not terminating anyone. If we were to terminate someone, then I would absolutely stand on the other side of the situation because we could wait a year for attrition or whatnot. And then we'd focus on trying to manipulate our supports. But right now, we're in a position where we're trying to protect the position of someone that doesn't already work for SASD. And at the same time, like John said, we are we're having decreasing enrollment and we need to make decisions that reflect that. So.
Further discussion on this? Mr. McKenna, go ahead.
I struggle in the same way Amy does. We're going to allocate $150,000 potentially to look at SEL. What provides more social emotional learning than a classroom teacher? I get that enrollment is down. I get we're looking at an increase in class size, but why would we cut a classroom teacher and increase class size and then hire staff to deal with social emotional? That balance just doesn't make sense to me. The less kids you have in a classroom, I would think by definition, the less amount of discipline issues you're going to have to face in that classroom. I mean, if I'm a teacher, I'd rather teach 16 or 17 kids in today's age that we're in than I would teach 20 or 21. If I was going to make a priority, and I didn't, you know, last board meeting, I did not speak to a priority because I didn't know if I was going to be sitting up here when you work through your priorities. If I was going to be making a priority, it would be toward this. It would be toward what it is that we're doing well. And I think the pod system is working right now in this school. I see that based on test scores. I see that based on the way that the PLCs are working under this rooftop. I don't feel like it's the right time to take something apart that it looks like is working for something that we hope is going to work down the road.
Mr. Russ, I wonder if you could clarify two questions. So if we reduce the 3 positions, what's the class size going? What are we at right now and where are we looking to go from a class size standpoint? And I forgot what my other one was. Yes, and if we reduce those 3 positions, what and could the pod system stay in place?
So to answer your first question, if we would go and reduce 1 core teacher at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and with the ISA expansion, ISA added a teacher as well. 6th grade would go from 18.4 to 20.8. 7th grade, 19.6 to 22. Eighth grade, 18.3 to 20.6. Once again, that's an average.
And then could we maintain the pod system with those reductions?
There is ways to maintain the pod system. You can do a 4x2 pod. May have to be creative with some classes and some different levels based on certification. You could do a 3x3, 3x3, and then 2x2. The 3x3, 3x3 has the same system, and then that 2x2. Now you're talking about only two class sizes or two classes that would go back and forth, and those teachers would have to teach all 4 core subjects as well. So the idea is 2 teachers would teach each 2 classes. I'm sorry, I'm going to say math and science, social studies and English on the other one. Thank you very much, Ms. Mansky. So it is doable. And the teachers have seen that. It may adjust some, some people are used to teaching 7th grade science, for example. They may need to teach 7th grade science in another subject. It might be 8th grade science. It might be 6th grade science. So depending on what the administration and the teams come up with. So it could remain the same, and that's keeping the same schedule that they have. Same intervention time, the same 10-period day. That was that thing, a lot of things going well at Meadowview. Schedule change, really trying to pinpoint what is the reason. And I go back to Mr. McKenna's point is not missed. There's a lot of good things in. Is it the 3x3 pods? Is it the schedule change? Is it the interventions for everybody? Is it the restorative practices that they're doing, the SEL committees that they're having? It's really hard to pinpoint something in an organization like schools.
Thank you, Mr. S. And for me, go ahead, Mr. Hendricks, microphone.
So, Mr. Russ, I appreciate the numbers that you gave, but the number that I would be interested in is what will class sizes look like if we don't reduce those 3?
It would be 18.4. The first number it would be.
Oh, okay, so
So it would be 18 and a half in 6th grade, 19 and a half in 7th, and 18 and a half in 8th.
thank you.
So, and I will just say, Mr. McKenna, go ahead.
Okay.
So I will just state that last month for me, it was a budgetary concern or thought, and I wouldn't have been okay with that. But after the discussion, looking at pupils, the potential for maintaining the pod system, my decision is different now, or my thought process is different now because of that scenario. So it's not a budgetary decision, which is why the other things that we've discussed, I was able to bring up and felt comfortable with, because this is based per pupil for me now. Go ahead,
So,
Mr. McKenna.
My question is current 3x3, if you've got 18 and a half kids, a teacher connects with, say, 55 kids a day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. On average.
Yeah.
If we go to a 4x2, are you not asking a teacher to see 80 kids a day?
80 kids over the cycle, yes. So you go from about, roughly 60
Mhm.
to 80. Yes.
So the likelihood of establishing connections becomes less. It has to be harder to deal with 80 kids on a given day. And I'm not trying to set up a question
Yeah.
not trying to set this up. I really feel like it's going against what we're teaching. We're teaching connections. We're teaching climate and culture. I guess I just struggle with it.
Further discussion, comments? Mr. Burns Gilbert, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, and I think I mentioned this last month, but I probably didn't do a good job explaining it, which, whatever. But I think for me, what made me okay with the class size piece, a couple of those layers, one, right, it's gonna be bigger next year and then it'll go down, right, as smaller class sizes continue or projections continue. But I remember Miss Brigham, it was probably about a year ago, right, did a thorough presentation. I don't know, Miss Mansky might have that too, or we can look back on our notes, but research showing that class sizes, I think, in the large smorgasbord of supports that we can provide students was about 15th to 20th overall when measuring the total impact, and some of those things like instructional coaches, PLC, mentors, right, feeling value, those things were higher on that list of achievement and growth impact there. So that, to me, like, that's where that mentality comes in of making this make sense in my head, because we also don't know, you know, the specifics of that structure. I think I struggle if we're going to be up here and say the pod needs to look like this. That's too much in my book at this point. But the fact that the pod is one of those, right, like more influential learning and helpful support systems makes that a priority for me. So knowing that it can continue further drives that home. I think the last piece really just emphasize, I was going on, the staffing for next year. So we also don't know, one of those teachers might have 2 special education aides and 2 regular aides in their room, depending on how things are assigned. And so they wouldn't be the only adult likely in the space, and being able to kind of shoulder some of that support throughout relationship building. I think the other piece with class sizes that I'm weighing too, of it's from what I've learned it through last year and this year, it's more of a bell curve, right? Like you get class sizes that are too small and the interactions are less, right? There's different layers that might impact on that end of things versus class sizes that are, you know, in the cities are 30, right? Like that's another. And so to me, kind of finding that sweet spot, I haven't lived through a normal year on the board yet. So this seems like a normal process every year of adjusting our staffing levels like any organization. So again, not personal to Todd's point. I think that drives that home, but being able to recognize that if we have class sizes that are 15 or lower, like we're not doing our jobs, right? That's a disservice to the community and the funds that we're sending, right? But if they're at 30, that's also a really big problem. So that's kind of where my mentality comes in of this is going to be an ebb and flow every year, especially knowing the COVID, right, money that we're going to do this again next year regardless. So I think those are just a couple things that didn't make it from brain to mouth last month. So with
Mr. Russ, go ahead.
Test, there we go. So Colin mentioned the organization. We're talking about the organizational health of our organization. We're talking about attracting and retaining staff. In the budget report or the budget status, we budgeted 2%. And I know some of our colleagues, our comparables are looking at 4%. So it's really about the organizational health and how can we attract and retain high quality staff, and not just at Meadowview. And I understand Meadowview is very passionate about it. We think that we can attract and retain through high levels of support Meadowview as well, but we also have to think about across the board. And that's the difficult side that the board is going to be tackling with, because we have our priorities. We have to attract and retain our employees, which is the lifeblood of why we're here, to support our kids. And there's a term called strategic abandonment of positions for the sake of the organizational health. And we're not abandoning these positions and saying, good luck, Meadowview. We think that these positions, as we work together, are doable, and things that we need to do from my perspective, for our organizational health, not just of this year, but of future years as well.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Wells. Sure. Yeah. So go ahead, Ms. Bansky.
So Hattie's research looks at everything based on, would that action have a year's growth, and anything at 0.4 effect size is 1 year's growth, and class size has 0.21 effect size. So a class size would give you, like, in a year would give you half a year's growth. So that's the research that Colin was mentioning before.
Thank you for that. All right, I have a motion from Mr. Wells. I have a second from Mr. Hendricks. Roll call.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna,
No.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
No.
Mr. Schulte.
Yes. Motion carries 5-2. Mr. Russ, are there any further reductions that you're looking for at this time?
The other aspect that we didn't discuss was 3 educational assistants. regular education assistants. That was something that the board did not act upon. I believe they reduced 2. My recommendation was 5. So the additional, you're looking at $150,000. No one would be losing a position. They may shift, but that would be another option for the board to look at at this time if they wish to do so.
Any further discussion on the 3 educational assistants?
So,
Mr. Wells.
yeah, I guess I'll start. So kind of recapping what we hit before and kind of, because I was surprisingly sold on Sam's plan fairly early. And one of my philosophies over the past year was I would rather have an educator with 30 students in a classroom that feel supported and well cared for versus an educator with 15 students that doesn't. And a lot of what Sam's plan, yes, it does address our budgetary issues, but it also provided that additional support staff administratively where they can actually provide guidance and put out those said theoretical fires that have been created through the behavioral issues and whatnot. And I think that's just a powerful point that I think we need to make. And so with that, I would like to continue with the administrative recommendation and make the motion to remove, is it 2 or 3 additional educators assistants?
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Wells to reduce 3 educational assistants district-wide. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
I have a second from Mr. Burns Gilbert. Do we have any additional discussion on this?
Can you please?
Mrs.
remind-
Lopez, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you please remind me where these educational assistants will come from?
We're looking at SHS, Herman, and Southside. So we're looking at Herman and SHS.
And are these?
Did you hear that,
Regular
Mrs. Lopez?
These
The
are-
Herman one is retiring this year.
Is that retirement one that we accounted for last time when we reduced 2?
No,
So this is a new retirement,
it's not a new retirement. It's just a different position.
a new development?
No. It's not a current vacant position. The ones at Southside were currently vacant.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we just wouldn't refill that position.
We're looking at, we're not filling one position to a retirement and the other 2 regular education aides at SHS who oversee their study halls.
Mr. Hendricks, did you have?
It was answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, further discussion?
And just
Mr.
to
Russ, go
clarify,
ahead.
it's regular ed because the special educational assistants are more tied to those IEPs, making sure that the instruction and then that document is fulfilled.
Thank you for that. All right, if there's no further discussion, roll call.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
No.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you for all that discussion. Item 3C, discussion and possible action to, I'm sorry, Mr. Russ, is there anything further that administration is seeking at the moment?
I don't think so at this time. Thank you very much. And very difficult decisions. Appreciate the guidance and feedback and appreciate the great conversation and the listening that you've all done, not just to administration, but to the staff. I'm sure some community members were also talking to you as well. Not easy decisions to be made, but decisions that need to be made by the board.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Item 3C, discussion and possible action to approve remodeling the Sparta High School auditorium. Mr. Russ.
All right, we kind of walked through the Fund 46 presentation. And the facility needs. A lot of, so, I guess to sum it up, Do we have the Fund 46 to do this? Yes, we do. The question is, and I'll flat out put it out there, is that we're in the middle of our facility study right now. Is this the right time? I don't think anybody up here and anybody in our community would say that that auditorium does not need a good facelift, especially with sound and light and video. That's not, I don't think that's debatable. However, the timing is debatable. The quote, we have money for it. If we get going, the vendor thinks October 31st is a doable thing. How doable? He's confident. The company is confident. Things happen, and the realistic is that our musical is the first weekend in November. Correct?
Yeah,
It's-
which is the reason we wanted to bring it to April. And
This is why
not
it's
wait
in
till May.
April, so it gives us a couple more, because it gives us a couple more weeks if we choose to do that, to give us a little bit more leeway. But then we would be putting on a production very quickly, one way or another, after that's completed. So-
All right. Thank you, Mr. Russ. Further discussion from board members?
I would appreciate a little more detail as far as how the money's being spent. I mean, I would be more supportive of this if it was all, movable equipment that would be easily adaptable to any changes that might be made in the auditorium versus having to tell people, well, all that money was not going to be used.
So the actual equipment is movable. So we put up the equipment, it's movable. We can take it down and would be applicable to any other setting. Some things that would not be removable. If we build a bigger stage, for example, that curtain, the $30,000 curtain fits that stage. So if you build the bigger stage, the curtain would not be useful. In our setting, doesn't mean we can't turn around and sell it. And then the wiring. The wiring would also increase, and that's additional 75,000. So those are the two biggest costs, and that doesn't include storage or anything like that. But you're looking at about 75,000 in wiring approximately, and then a new curtain is about 30,000. If the stage stays the same, that $30,000 stays.
Yeah, essentially, and you weren't at the last meeting, that was kind of the discussion, was that 75,000, right? So that's really the main part. The curtain, I hear you. Yeah, I don't know if we keep the stage the same size, that wouldn't be as much of a concern. But we're looking at around that $375,000 range of equipment being able to be movable and to be reinstalled into the new, whatever the new footprint looks like.
And the total amount we're approving or looking to approve?
So we're looking to approve, if you go to slide 61. So right now there was an original budget of 440,000. The architectural study was 18,500. So the remaining budget is $421,500. If everything all together, the full budgeted amount would be $496,082. So one thing I was going to ask Mr. Russ, so remaining budget 421,000. When I look back at other expenditures out of Fund 46, we had some come out of Fund 46 and some come out of Fund 10. Could we do the same thing here so that we're not completely depleting Fund 46? Although, I mean, this was earmarked for it, but again, I hate the idea of just pulling it all. So just your
Yes,
thoughts.
we could do that, and we would have to budget Fund 10 money for that. So, but we could do a mixture of that as well. And just depending on how the board wants to approve, so they could approve a $400,000 purchase, for example, out of Fund 46, and the remainder 100,000 out of fund balance or the Fund 10.
Thank you for
To
that.
do that.
Further discussion or questions? Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Mr. Russ, at the committee of the whole meeting, I think, at a previous meeting, I asked you if any of these bids could be locked in or if they would be changing over time.
60 days is what they said.
So does that mean we'd have to approve it within 60 days or
The quote is for 60 days.
so if we sign off, we're good? That those will not change
Within 60
within
days.
60 days?
Correct.
Yep.
Do you have an estimate for what it would cost to remove and store that equipment? Should we make changes to the auditorium as a result of the entire facilities study recommendations?
That I do not have. I know it's for wiring. And I don't know how much it's gonna store and they bring them back in, tear it down, store it in the cafeteria, for example, or a pod or anything like that. I'm assuming there's gonna be an additional cost for that. I don't know how much.
Have we ever looked into, I recognize the need for this. It needs to be done. There's no question. I agree. It is not debatable. Have we ever looked into for this next year, renting equipment that would be of sufficient quality that our students could really put on an amazing performance, matching their abilities and their skills, as opposed to having these two facility studies and facility changes going on at the same time?
We would have to work together with the SHS organization, the booster club, and the district to say, what do we need to do to continue to do what they've been doing probably for the last 5 years? And say, how can we, what do you need to rent? What do you need to borrow? How can we do that plan to get us through this facility study? We could do that. How much is it going to cost? That would be a collaborative effort. I don't know if 10,000 is going to be the number or not.
It's 14 to 18,000 is what they say.
Less than the 75,000 that we could potentially lose, however, if we were to change the auditorium based on the district facilities assessment.
Yes, that would be, if the district facility assessment says this is an idea, the board will have to work with the community through engagement and say, is that the right thing to do? Because I think the facility study is going to come back and say, yeah, you want to break down a wall, you can break down a wall. It's just if the community says, yep, that's a pretty good thing to do to increase the capacity, for example. So it's really dependent on the ideas, or maybe they'll come back and say, you can't break down any walls. Those are extremely load-bearing walls. I don't even know if that's an extremely load-bearing wall word. But it's really, you know what? No, this is the envelope that we want to do. So it really, when we go through this process to get that input to say, what do we want to envision that space to do? And remember, if we do go down that route and we do that, it is basically $20,000 could be every year until that is completed. And I don't know when that timeline would be.
Did you have another? I
Yes,
thought you, okay, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
did have one more question. Is it possible that the community fund 80 could pay for any of this, given that it is potentially used by the community as a whole? Is it something we could rent? Is that a possibility?
I think that's down the road. And I think is it a possibility? I think so. We'd have to look into, right down the road with West Salem, see how the Hyder Center is. I'd have to defer that to Ms. Hauser in order to do that. But I think right now it's not a Fund 80 expense, even though that a community group can use it. But I think we would have to revamp the way it's done.
Thank you.
All right, further questions or discussions or comments? Mr. McKenna, go ahead.
When I look at, no long range building plan and I look at the priorities, it's hard for me to justify spending the $75,000 twice. What is administration's recommendation?
Talked with Ms. Hauser quite a bit about this. It's going to be it's my recommendation along with Ms. Hauser's is that we do hold off until the facility assessment is completed. Working with the theater booster club, working with the high school group to see what needs to be done with the big picture in mind. And knowing that it might be, Mr. Burns Gilbert said 5 years, that $20,000 per year, that's $100,000 investment that we're doing to continue to do the best we can. But it's going to be a collaboration and really to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's going to happen. I shouldn't say that. Most likely it's going to happen one way or another, but that facility study may say this, this, and this, and the board may come back here in August and say, let's get this done. We still have our plan for the musical. We would still probably have to plan for show choir, but for the 24-25 school year, we will have this done. If we don't break down walls or anything like that. So my recommendation is that we be patient, go with the facility study, knowing that when we've had our community engagement and talking with the stakeholders about what are some ideas they might have. But that's my opinion. I could see their side as well. And that they've been band-aiding this for the last 5 years. We would ask them to be patient a little longer, which some people is going to be very frustrated with that.
Further discussion or comments?
Well, I'm, for one, am pleased to hear the administrator's recommendation, because while I would love to see these improvements being made, if they were done, then I would be very weak on a major rehaul of the auditorium. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be now 5 years. I mean, if the facility committee recommendation has just minor improvements to the auditorium, then full steam ahead with this project, and maybe it gets delayed 6 months instead of, it certainly wouldn't have to be 5 years or whatever.
And that's the timing. I just don't know when the timing is, but the study will give us a little bit more forthright time potentially.
Yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Did you say that the overall district facilities will be completed in July?
I don't have the timetable in front of me, but we're looking at getting feedback, and the assessment will be done. Yes. What the assessment says, that's when we bring in the stakeholders and says, hey, this is these are some ideas we can keep. Do we want to have a 600 seat auditorium, or do we want a 1,000 seat? Do we want an 800 seat? And really getting that community feedback and that engagement to get a sense of our community is ready to go with X, and X could be 600. It could be 2,000. So, but it really gives time. So the study will tell us some ideas. And then the engagement side is what does the community really value? Because they'll be able to put anything there.
I just remember July being a date. Was that when the assessment is supposed to be done, or is that when our engagement is going to occur?
We're continuing the engagement. Last month happened, the soup with the soup to continue. But I believe July, like I said, I don't have it in front of me. July will be the time when we get that final report to say, these are the possibilities. Because they may say you can't break down that extremely load bearing wall. Or they may say, tear it down. That's not even a load bearing wall.
Further discussion from board members? All right, I just have to say I am 100% in disagreement with administration or with Mr. Russ on this. We've had this discussion, so I just coming out there with it. We've told them for 5 years that we were going to take care of this, and we're not doing it. We haven't done it. We've had money earmarked for this. This money is set for the auditorium. This isn't affecting our budget from a standpoint that the facilities committee said, we want to see Memorial Field upgraded, and we want to see the Sparta High School auditorium upgraded. Those are the two things that the forward facility asked. And we have the money set there, and we're just going to wait longer on it. I understand the $75,000, but if you buy a district vehicle, there's going to be depreciation on that. You're going to have certain losses with those types of scenarios and situations. If we wait 6 months, we may find the facility assessment says, yeah, you need a new auditorium, you need a new, you need to upgrade all these things. And then we go to referendum and our community says no. So now we've waited over a year and we still haven't provided. Well, let me just say for the showcase, we had 6% of our student body sitting in that auditorium. 6% of the Sparta Area School District student body performed on that stage that night. That's huge. Think of the concerts and the opportunities that we're pushing off yet another year when we have the money earmarked. And I guess that's where my confusion is with this. Is there a possibility we're gonna that 75,000? Yes. But we have all of this opportunity. We have a large swath of it. I mean, what was the exact number? $380,000 worth of equipment that's going to be able to be moved to a new facility. And we give our children, our students, the opportunity to put on good performances, have a facility worth being proud of. That should all mean something. Go ahead, Mrs. Lopez.
Is the equipment such that it would be adequate if we were to enlarge the auditorium? Are we over supplying equipment? I mean, not oversupplying, but you know what I'm saying? Like, are the speakers adequate for a larger facility?
They would fit the next facility. Obviously, if we build so much more, we may need to add to those. Now we're in speakers, lights, cans, and that sort of thing. That just comes, but we would have the vast majority of them. This is my understanding.
Sorry.
Mr. Wells, go ahead.
Yeah, there was just there was a low hanging financial number that will help me. Is the number of $20,000 or $10,000 is mentioned a lot, and I don't know where that necessarily came from. Over recurring. I just wanted to clarify on that.
So I had stated I thought it was 14 to 18,000 for renting equipment if the students and staff are going to need to do that per performance. So if they're going to rent equipment for a musical or a 3-act play, which they have one each year, it's going to cost between $14,000 and $18,000 to rent that equipment.
And that's what I figured. I think if we're concerned about storing, and I don't know the cost of storing by any means, but if we're concerned about storing, that's going to be pennies compared to the cost of wiring. So I think the question that we have to ask is the $75,000 to $100,000, is that worth it as a sunk cost? And that's what I'm trying to figure out myself as the discussion volleys back and forth and whatnot. So yeah, 100,000 on a $400,000 project. Would this prevent some people from voting on the potential referendum too? There's so many aspects to it. So that's my statement there. I don't think renting, if we were to rent out equipment, I wouldn't think that would be the most viable option for us. So I think it's either all in or all out. And that's really the philosophy for this.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Is there further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. McKenna.
It's just one thing, and I want to support the things that we are exceptional at. Our show choir, our 3-act plays, what the music department is doing is exceptional. The problem I have with going forward with this today is this what we really want? Is this the final product that we want our auditorium to be? Because I think if we start down the path, there's going to be people that think we're done. If they go to the show and the sound is great, and the lights are great, and it goes off without a hitch, why are they going to vote for something more? I think Todd's right. You go all the way or you don't do anything. I'm not sure that sound and lights is enough in the auditorium. It's an auditorium that's as old as the school. And I'm afraid that doing this, even though we've promised it for 5 years, I want to do it. I want to vote yes. I'm not afraid. I'm afraid that it doesn't go far enough and it limits our possibilities when the time comes. I'd like to finish the study first.
Further discussion from board members? All right, go ahead, Mrs.
I'm
Lopez.
sorry, I just wanted one thing clarified. $14,000 to $18,000 per event.
Correct. Yeah,
So it's not, you get it the whole year.
correct. Correct.
Thank you.
Anything further from board members?
I
Okay,
would
go
have
ahead.
to agree with Mr. McKenna and what's 2 or 3 more months waiting for the study to finish. I understand your passion. I had the typical, the same response when it came to Memorial Field. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right. James Rasmussen quote, I'm gonna quote him, you know, why do we want to stay at Sparta good when we're working towards Sparta great? Let's be great and finish the study and go from there.
Anything else on this topic? All right, hearing none. No need for a motion or anything, correct,
Well, we
Mr.
can-
Russ, or
You
where?
could- No, it's up to the board.
Okay,
If
so,
somebody makes a motion, and they get a second, and
so
so
would
no.
anybody
I will.
entertain a motion? Go for it.
I will make the motion to wait until the facility study is finished and move forward at that time.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Prestwood Funkhauser. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Mr. McKenna. Any further discussion on this?
I just want to add quick.
Oh, Mr. Burns Gilbert, go ahead.
Sorry. I don't know. I'll decide when Wendy calls my name, but I think what sits with me is that the 75,000, that's our penalty for ignoring this for 5 years like that. I'm less, that's a product of previous decisions, right? So that's less of a concern, especially knowing that whatever comes out of the facility study is going to cost way more than $75,000, right? Delaying it, I worry that if this facility studies comes back with a whole, recommendation that's gonna take years to get in, right? Then we're talking years of rental and more time of feeling like, right, second class rate to a Memorial Field project that just happened, right? To other pieces that we can see the impact that is having on our community, on our students, on our employees. It's incredibly positive. And I just sit with, I forget, it was one of the public comment too, of if this was a, scoreboard in the gym, we wouldn't even be talking about it because it would have been fixed already, right? But it hasn't been. So yeah, this is hard.
But I think though, if we decide to move ahead at this moment in time, and as we start to tear things apart and take things out, those things that you say we've put off and we don't finish the study, we're going to come up to them as we're doing this project, and it's going to ultimately cost more money. The Memorial Field project, we knew it had to be done, and we went in and we did it and we took care of it. There were hiccups and we had to spend more money. So I think in order to avoid a lot of those uncertainties or a lot of those things that may come up or can come up, we finished the study first. So we know exactly what we're getting into and that we can assess it at that time. So as we start the remodel project, we have come up with ways to combat some of those issues. I understand what you're saying. And yeah, it's been promised and it's been promised. But because the building is as old as it is and the facility is in much needed repair, I feel that going in wide open, eyes wide open, is going to be better overall.
All right, so we'll go ahead and go to vote. I just want to finalize by saying, from a show choir standpoint, camp last year, they had 20 kids. They had 117 kids this year because of what the show choir did. The expectation for show choir was 1 finals. They had 7 competitions. They made it to finals 7 times. They did a musical. They were nominated for every Jerry Award that's available, just so everybody's aware. Roll call.
Mr. Schulze,
No.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
No.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
No.
Ms. Lopez, to wait until the facility study is complete and then make a decision.
Yes.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3. At this point, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion, but first I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Someone said run for school board, it'll be fun. I was like, all right. The last 3 years have not, they've had their highs and lows, and COVID happened and my first meeting was virtual, and it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. And I've had people call me, I've had people come into my office and yell at me while my kids are there. I've had emails, I've had stuff left on my front door. Okay. It's not easy. And I appreciate everybody that's come out and has said thank you. And I just want you guys to know, I know what you're going through. Hopefully you don't have to go through the same tumultuous sessions and topics that I have had to go through. It's not easy. It's sleepless nights, it's tears, it's leaving right from here and going and grabbing a beer just to unwind and relax. It's it's crying. I mean, it's been a lot of emotions the last 3 years. I'm proud to say that I made it to the end. Not to discredit anybody that has left before me. But just, and like I don't want to be Sparta good. I want to be Sparta great, to quote Mr. Rasmussen again. And I feel that the time I've spent on here, I've seen so much transformation, and I've seen a lot of things happen, good and bad. But I appreciate that no matter what happens up here, that we can all still shake hands and we can all hold our heads high. So my kids are Sparta kids. I am not, but to be a part of this opportunity that I've been a part of has been life-changing. I know that sounds cliche, but it really has been. And my husband has been a great supporter, and he's the one that holds me when I cry. But to have people yell at you and scream at you, and you just, I'm sorry, and they want to teach you to be a good board member. I don't do that very well. I did my own thing up here. So thank you to each and every one of you, and congratulations to you three who survived this last election. And I wish you all the best, and please don't ever call me again.
And Heidi, our district is a better district because of you. So thank you so much for that again.
Thank you. Yep. And we'll call you until the 24th.
Yeah. I will make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
All right. Do I have a second? A second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.